Emma Natami will live. Emma Natami will live. I will let be like one. You know, Gomina drowned the Uga. Low, when no middle, Lord Wadolo. I will
want to beg the government so to talk to Femi Adelaja. When he's coming here, we bring the white boat. That the last one boat will come with it with many soldiers. Nobody can near the boat. So we are only begging God to help us.
Look at Torubami. Torubami, they just wake up in a day and start pursuing them up and down. They even promise them that don't worry, we settle you in another community. Torubami people, they are in Makoko community when they pursue them away. Ikate people, they are in Makoko community. Bariga, they are in Makoko community. Now the government and the developer again, they came in that they want to collect Makoko away from us.
If we are a landlord, you show your first data like this, they will start tormenting you that they will be putting fears in your body, they will kill you so that you will not be able to move front, to come and push them away.
Makoko community is an urban slum, which the Lagos state government considers a dent to its megacity ambition. The government wants to relocate and resettle the people of the community so it can redevelop the place. But the terms of relocation, resettlement and compensation are not clear. For years, the Makoko, Shoguro and Okeagbon communities have made this place their home. But recent efforts to develop the waterfront threaten their very existence. So where exactly does the government plan to relocate the locals? What happens to the fishing community? And how does a mega upscale property solve the city's housing deficit? TV360 Niger launched an investigation into the redevelopment plan of the Lagos state government and sought to find answers to these questions. Every morning, 55-year-old Godonu Ojo paddles his canoe to the Lagos Lagoon, just meters away from his ancestral home in Makoko to fish. Like thousands of other fishermen in the Makoko waterfront community, Godonu survives on the daily income he gets from selling his daily catch. But the reclamation activities of the Lagos state government, in partnership with the private developer FBT Coral Estates Limited, threatens not only the livelihood of Ojo and other local fishermen here, but also their homes.
I'm a fisherman too. I used to go to fishing, but when that dredging comes, there's a time that they put it on the water. That time the water float with it. When somebody passes, that boat with it, there's something that's used to bring sand will disturb the person. Even though the big wave is coming, the boat can capsize. So we try to manage until they put it on the ground of water. But that thing drive the whole fish to the sea. So that thing now can drive the whole fish to the sea and drive them moving around. They will not come nearby.
From the fishermen who toil all day on the lagoon To the women who smoke the fish, and then finally to the fishmonger who trades our wares at the popular Makoko seafood market. The survival of each resident is tied to the Lagos Lagoon. But residents say the sand-filling activities on the community waterfront has made fishing very difficult. According to the Lagos State Commissioner for Agriculture, Abisola Olusonya, the artisanal fisheries subsector of the state's fish supply chain presently contributes 80% of local fish production, which accounts for 40% of the state's total fish demand. She added that it also provides a major source of livelihood for fishermen in the state, and makoko is one of the sources of the city's fish supply. But despite its economic viability, the Lagos State government would prefer that Makoko Iwaya waterfront community does not exist. Rather than cars and motorcycles, canoes bump into each other here in Makoko, an informal waterfront settlement in Lagos, Nigeria. It is often called the Venice of Africa, but its floating slum status where thousands live in wooden houses nestled on stilts in deep murky waters tell a different story. The multicultural nature of this riverine community reflects in the language, majorly Egun, Yoruba and French. Despite being a slum, life here is tranquil. Residents engage in routine business activities, offering various forms of services such as grocery shops, door-to-door salesmanship, canoe manufacturing workshops, and even schools that cater for both English and French-speaking people.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Trouble began for the community on July 20, 2012, when the Lagos State Demolition Task Force stormed Makoko and began pulling down houses barely 72 hours after an eviction notice by the Lagos State Ministry of Waterfront Infrastructure Development. To speed up the eviction process, armed men set the wooden houses on fire. In a disturbance, one person lost his life and many others sustained injuries. Again in 2020, the Lagos State government announced the reclamation of 54.58 hectares of makoko for redevelopment by developer FBT Coral Estate Limited. But this plan has been widely rejected by residents of Makoko Iwaya waterfront community.
Torí bó ṣe wọ́n ṣe fún gbogbo wa àwọn èèyàn wa bó bá ṣe díẹ̀ díẹ̀ nísìn wọ́n á kó wọn kúrò wọ́n ní níbi kankan fi sùn sí gbogbo wa nìkan wà nínú bòté wà nínú ọkọ̀ bó bá níbi kan wá sùn sí kò dá àlọ́mọ wẹ́wẹ́wẹ́ ọmọ pọ̀ mo fẹ́ afẹ́ kó wọn sí àlè kúrò ń bí but bí ìjọba fẹ́ tún àwọn sùkúù ṣe fún àwọn ọmọ wa ó dá.
I'm a graduate of BSP Polytechnic. I graduated there, and it's from this fishing money that I was sent to school. We have many students here. We have more than 200 students, more than 300 to 1,000 students that are schooling here. We are all trained, all sent to school with this fishing money. If there's something that place, how are we going to survive? How are these people going to survive? Fine, they are talking about development. I know it's not good for we to be staying like this, like wasted. There's no way, there's no place to put waste. Dustbin, you understand? No good health center, no government school here. But we ourselves, we support their motion that said they want to develop, but it shouldn't be that way. If truly they would develop the community, they should come. We, the youth, the community, everybody will discuss in a democratic way. They can't just go there and impose dredging or impose any forced eviction on us.
There's no place that can be free to them other than fishing ports. I don't know where you want to take them to. I don't know where you want to develop for them. The only place they can live peacefully is at the fishing ports. So, no to the land grabbing. You know, we have experienced a lot of things, and now we have come to say no to the land grabbing, and let us not be chased from our homes.
The locals, made up of 3 fishing communities, Makoko, Osun-Osogbo and Sogoro, have organized themselves on different occasions to protest the government's relocation and redevelopment plans. They say rather than build the much-needed infrastructure the community needs, the government is employing subtle means to steal their land and redevelop it for the benefit of the city's rich. In 2017, thousands of people in Otodogbame, an informal fishing community, were left homeless when officials of the Lagos State government and armed policemen conducted a forceful eviction. The raid led to the destruction of homes of about 5,000 people and the death of a man who, according to the Justice and Empowerment Initiative (JEI), was shot in the neck.
Look at Torugbami. They just wake up in a day and start pursuing them up and down. They even promise them that don't worry, we settle you in another community. Torugbami people, they are in makoko community when they pursue them away. Ikate people, they are in makoko community. Bariga, they are in makoko community. Now everybody now in makoko community, all the people you have chased away, you have promised to relocate them in another community, which you didn't even do. And you now chase them to, they run into makoko community. Now the government and the developer again, they came in that they want to collect makoko away from us.
These particular people are the people that spoil Otodogbame. They went to Otodogbame. They sound-feed the waterfront. They make it impossible for the people, the fishing people, to move outside. Since they can't move outside, they use the sound to block the waterfront and then wage war on them, calling the touts, the police, without informing the governor. So when they started this thing, they killed more than 5 people were killed during Otodogbame forced eviction that took place in 2017.
In an apparent move to avoid public backlash, the state government chose to adopt a new approach of dialogue with the representatives of the Makoko Iwaya waterfront community. But things quickly turned sour when the locals felt sold out by their leaders, or bales, as they are called in the local language. Residents showed us an MOU where the bales signed an agreement with a private developer, FBT Coral Estates Limited, giving consent to the state government's proposed redevelopment and regeneration plans. The residents, however, argued that the MOU was signed without the general consensus of the community.
When they came, they proposed the plan. The youth, everyone in the community doesn't support their motion. So we said no. Suddenly they went to meet with the developer Femi of FBT Coral Limited. So when they met with Femi without our consent, they signed. We heard that they signed an MOU. They signed a MOU. When they signed the MOU, we heard about it. We are not happy because we didn't meet together to discuss this. So we were angry. We asked them that we are not in support with this MOU they signed. So they were like, we are the leaders. Anything we want is that. Anything we want is what you will take.
What I've learned so far, speaking with members of this community, is that while they are open to development in terms of better schools, healthcare and other infrastructure, they want all of this on their own terms. Now, their fear is that these developers could take advantage of them and steal their land. Now, they say that fishing is their primary source of income and any form of relocation is not welcome.
It is important to understand that the MOU speaks of several redevelopment projects that the community will benefit from, such as jobs and other social amenities, but a part which speaks of a displacement and resettlement at a later date worries the residents. The Lagos State government, on one hand, promises to redevelop the area and turn it into an upscale estate in line with the themes agenda of the state. But in the same breath, the MOU speaks of a relocation and resettlement of the locals. This contradiction raises three major questions. Since the MOU did not mention the construction of low-cost housing for the residents, how will the construction of an upscale mega estate be of benefit to the fishing community? Where does the government plan to move the fishing community to? And how would they be compensated? These are the questions TV360 Niger put forward in these letters to the Office of the Public-Private Partnership, whose special advisor is Okpe George. The Lagos State Ministry of Waterfront Infrastructure Development, headed by Ahmed Kabiru, and the Lagos State Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, which was headed by Salako Idris at the time of this report. Sadly, all attempts to get a response from these three agencies, who play vital roles in the redevelopment plan of the Makoko Iwaya waterfront community, have been futile. After an initial cancellation of a scheduled interview by the Special Advisor to the Office of Public-Private Partnership, Okpe George, we finally got a response months into this investigation. In a signed letter, the Special Advisor gave vague assurances of the state government's resolve to work in partnership with the locals. His responses did not give clear and direct answers to the questions and demands of the residents of Makoko Iwaya waterfront community. We have also tried to get answers from Felix Moka, who is named as a legal representative of the Makoko Iwaya fishing community in a memorandum of understanding. All calls to his numbers were unanswered, and he did not respond to his text messages.
Despite several protests, reclamation activities on the Makoko waterfront continues. As you can see behind me, that's a dredging machine set up by FBT Coral Estate Limited to reclaim more than 50 hectares of land of the Makoko waterfront. Now, fishermen say the dredging activities, as they call it, has made fishing quite difficult.
While the questions of the residents of Makoko Iwaya waterfront community remains unanswered, the sorry state of housing deficit in Lagos is better explained in these numbers. An estimated population size of 23 million residents, a housing stock of 1.49 million units, and a household size of 4.9 people puts the housing deficit of the state at 3.2 million housing units. The Lagos State government is not unaware of this problem and says it has delivered 14 housing schemes in the past 2 years, contributing 7,000 affordable housing units. While this number of homes can barely solve the city's housing problems, these houses do not come cheap, as houses range between 4 million naira and 20 million naira. With Lagos having a poverty rate estimated at 8.5% and the vast majority living below extreme poverty levels, the construction of mega estates and even the low-cost housing estate is unaffordable for an average Makoko resident. This will further worsen the housing crisis and push more of the state's population into slums and, worse still, homelessness. To better understand the state's housing situation, I paid a visit to Lukman Oshodi, an infrastructure and development expert who led a research team in 2016 on the Lagos State government's past and present policies and projects that border on urban regeneration, housing and infrastructure development in the state, especially mega projects. Oshodi tells me some of his research outcomes.
If you look at the city of Lagos and the development orientation, all this resettlement, relocation, they are yet to be fully adopted as a culture of development processes in Lagos. If you look at development trajectory of Lagos, there is no way you can have a new development without some level of demolition and all that. But the process of going about that demolition so that it doesn't really expose the dignity of the people who reside in those places into danger, into ridicule. Those are the key points that need to come into play.
Sadly, the problem runs deeper than mere numbers suggest. When evacuations are carried out, families are torn apart and may never be properly compensated or resettled decades after. This was the case of some residents of Old Maroko who were lucky to be resettled in this substandard housing in Ikota area of the state. Now 70 years old, Roselyn Odimoko was a young mother and wife in 1990 when she and her husband lost their homes when the then military governor of the state, Raji Razaki, ordered the forceful eviction of more than 3,000 residents of Maroko.
When they give us notice 7 days that they're going to let everybody pack away, we think say that is a joke. Before the 7 days, they bring bulldozers, soldiers, surround all the whole Morocco. That day of 7 days, they start demolishing all the whole places. That's during Razaki regime. That 1990. Like I myself, I sleep for main road for good 2 weeks because nowhere to go. I have children. My husband is there. Many people, we don't know where to go. 7 days notice to go out is how Morocco. Some people are sleeping under bridge everywhere. The government still call us when we are reporting where are we going. Then give us say that we come and take our allocation paper for this 8 years a year. We went there. Then give them. Like we have 2 houses. They not even give us 1. Some people have 3. Then give them 1. It's by luck. The house at Morocco is 10,000 houses. But the people they locate for this place, both Jakonde and this, it's not all to 6,000 or 5,000. You see, when this thing happen, then give us allocation paper. Everybody comes to find the zone house here, and when we get some people get the place, they enter. When that time there is no window, it's uncompleted building. Yeah, there no window, no door, no nothing. Like this bridge now, many people die because nowhere to hide themselves. Before we use zinc and everything, putting for the doors and this thing. After then call us again for roofers. Even they give us paper for the roofers for doors and the roofers, and we take it and come and fix it by yourself.
While the eviction has been described as one of the largest forced evictions in Nigerian history, the people still face the threat of losing everything as land grabbers and encroachers threaten them daily.
February this month, this year we just say caterpillar just coming. They bring sand, fill all these places. When they break, they will continue fill. When they break, they fill. When they break, they fill. We go and meet them and say, who send you this work? Because we know because they have gone and this OPC people. And then we cannot go and meet them. We send people go and meet them. Where are you coming from? Who send you? They say they want to develop care. If you want to develop, not be develop. If you never see us, why you say you want to develop this place? Nobody against developer. The only thing, if you want to develop, you have to come to our community and ask us, say, what happened? This is our landlord or this is a landlord. Well, we don't discuss with you, just continue to break our house. We just begin the drag. After when we drag, they don't give us any results. We have to go back. We go to, during that time, there's one court when they go for Yaba. We went to the court, we complained, they said we should bring our allocation paper for court. We submit all our allocation paper. Still, we tell the court, say, they are breaking the house. Let's give us stop those people for us, Judicial. They say no, they cannot stop.
This is how they normally treat us in this community like this. You see these people we are seeing there, so it's accusing the landlord association. They are the land grabber and they are the agent of the land grabber. They are working for Manuel Eberu and they are working for Yemi Idowu, which is the Aircom owner. So That is the way they threaten our in 2017-2018. They kill like our 4 or 5 men. When they come again, this 2022 again now, there's an old woman, slum. So also a pregnancy woman also die in these cases like this. Even though around 2:30, they also tormenting. If you are a landlord, you show your first data like this, they will start tormenting you that they will be putting fears in your body. They will kill you so that you will not be able to move front. To come and push them away.
We're just about running up our interviews with the residents of Ikota Estate when a security operative who did not identify himself came to us and ordered us to pack up our cameras. He also accosted some of the residents. He said they encroached on the area, and he also threatened to identify them and deal with them if they do not leave that area. He was also seen filming some of us and the residents to leave. Now, in response, the residents have told him that this is their land, and they also tell me that this is the way these unknown security operatives come around to harass them.
Makoko isn't the only community in the threat of an eventual displacement, and Old Maroko is just one of several communities that have ceased to exist.
Believe it or not, this part of Lekki in Etiosa local government area used to be a thriving town of Maroko, which more than 300,000 residents called home. Maroko was adjacent Ikoyi and east of Victoria Island. While all traces of old Maroko has been destroyed to make way for this affluent neighborhood, the original residents make do with substandard housing given by the Lagos State government as compensation.
The human and psychological effects of their eventual eviction and the apprehension of what the future holds reflects in the dynamics of human dignity, protection of aquatic life, and preservation of indigenous communities in Lagos State. Folashade Ogurinde, TV360 News.
The Osun-Osogbo Sacred Grove in Osogbo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria, is one of the last remnants of primary high forest in southern Nigeria. The site, a natural habitat that has been preserved for over 400 years, has served as both a pilgrim point as well as a tourist center for millions of people who visit the site annually to worship and celebrate the Osun goddess that is believed to inhabit the river that runs through the grove, giving the water the ability to heal and grant wishes of its believers.
Osun Grove happened to be a site that we all refer to as a living site. It's a living site just because activities that have been carried out over the years are still performed the way it used to be then. And secondly, it is a site where the worshippers do come to perform every 5th of the day, which means 5 days. They do come. For example, in churches, we go to churches during the week, but on Sunday, we christen it to be, we go to church on Sunday. Likewise, the Muslim goes to mosque on Friday. So despite the fact that the devotees do come interval, but they have a 5-5 day, which they call Ojose. Aside this, the uniqueness of this site is the name Osogbo was derived from this site. The appellation of the king was derived from this site.
From the entrance, one could feel the tranquility that comes with the well-preserved forest. A little further down comes another feeling of an elevated being's dwellings. This is the Osun-Osogbo Sacred Grove, one of the last sacred forests in Nigeria, along the banks of the Osun River, just outside the city of Osogbo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria. In this forest of 75 hectares of undisturbed areas of land, no residential building is allowed, no killing of any kind of animal, no fishing, no hunting or felling of trees.
Apart the fact that it is 75 hectares of the core zone and 47 hectares of the buffer zone, is one of its kind in sub-Saharan Africa and second UNESCO World Heritage Site in Nigeria. The kind of people or crowd that comes around, one will be marveled why this. But it is a festival and a river that people believes in. Because of the sacredness, you can't cut a tree, you can't fish. And if you are not a devotee, there are certain activities you don't do so that you don't blame yourself.
The one path that cuts right through the grove is lined on either sides with sanctuaries, illustrations of traditional Yoruba deities and primary high forest. Adekunle Olatunji is the curator and site manager of the grove that has existed for over 4 centuries. On a tour of the sacred forest, Olatunji describes how the name Osogbo came about and what the grove stands for.
At Ikpole, some kilometers from here is in Iboku. There's an hunter. It's not just an hunter that go into the bush to kill rat, or is a big hunter that hunts for elephants, bigger animals. In one of his sojourn, then from Ikpole looking for where they can get water, they now got to this site. On getting to this site, he was astounded. We were looking for almost a 40 kilometers from here, looking for water, still large water here. So he decided to go back to inform the king. My brother, we are hunting, I got to his place and I saw this river. So the hunter then was Oguntimeyin, while the king then at Ikpole is Laroye. So the two of them came down to the site, seeing what they wanted. So they decided to settle down at the bank of the river. So in one of their trying to rent the tent, a tree now fell into the river. And a voice came out of the river saying, Eyoma darling, you have broken my time, but 84 kokwa. So everybody the two of them were so shocked. Who is this person? Simultaneously, the spirit now answered, Osogbo pele, Osogbo rora, Osogbo pele, Osogbo. That was when they knew they are in Osogbo. Literally meaning Osogbo. So now, they now felt, what is the next thing to do? In Yoruba then, something strange happened. You do divination. During their divination, they wanted to know what's happening. So the Babalawo now said, Osun dwell here. You cannot stay with Osun. So they moved from the bank of the river, moved up. They now built a hut. That hut today is what we call the first palace. And there's these promises between them that if we say we should leave this place, as a powerful person, they felt, how will somebody in the river be telling us to leave? So if we are to leave, what will you do for us? And I said, okay, if you are to leave, I will make you prosper. there is no war that will conquer you. Do my bidding, and every year there must be somebody from your lineage to come and bring object of appeasement to me every year.
But the grove wasn't always this beautiful and serene. In fact, there was a time it was completely infested with termites until an Austrian artist, Susan Wenger, and her husband Uli Bayer arrived to save the sacred monument. Wenger devoted some 50 years of her life to preserving the forest, and with the help of local craftsmen in the city, she transformed the sacred grove into a sculptural garden with compelling artworks and objects of habitation. Because of them, this 200 acres is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
When Mama started with the Osun Groves, she started at the area we called Ayedakun. Ayedakun is also part of the groves. Our first two sculptures are still there, where we have Obatala and Yemo. And she did that, not in one place, at the main shrine, Ebu Yamako, and inside the forest there are the sculptures there that she made. And Mama would do the art with meditating, like communication with the deity before doing any form of art. And Mama got her inspiration, from there because she stayed there for a while.
She was invited to come and see or assist us in treating this termite attack. In doing that, she now fell in love with the culture. So she is so powerful and mystic that if she sleeps, revelations of what she is expected to do for this place will come to her. Then she now felt, for somebody of her status, there's a need for her to have people to work with. Then she now got in touch with the Oba. Then there and then some interested indigenous that were into art then were introduced to her. So that was why they formed what we call a new sacred art movement. With this new sacred art movement, from instruction from her, that's why we have all these structures.
Shaded by a canopy of trees with a flight of stone leading downwards, the inner grove lies within a natural depression, marking the exact spot where the first palace of the founder of Osogbo was located. The ancient palace with its ornate pillars and elegant designs has remained in its original state for decades, and its sacredness upheld for as long as it stands. A short walk away from the palace will take you to the Osun River, which on a normal day looks just like any other river except for the utter stillness that pervades the atmosphere around it and the occasional calving in the midst of its waters. Otherwise called the Herbs of Osun, because according to its devotees, this calm flowing river transcends ordinary water. Everything about the Osun Grove revolves around this river. It's like the life of this place. You take it away, the entire place becomes lifeless. This is where the history of the grove actually started from. And every year, thousands of devotees of the Osun goddess converge by the bank of this river, where they pray, believing that all of their problems will be solved by the goddess.
If it is just a mere river, why the crowd? If it is just a mere river, why are people taking this water? I'm using this water in context because here we don't have river, we don't have water. Please, we don't have water. Once you are here, you want agbo, apps. People that needed one thing or the other comes here to seek for assistance from Osun goddess. Believing, as I said, it's your faith. Believing he or she will do it for them. Whatever is being taken here is apps, is agbo. If you take it with your faith be you me, you'll be healed. It has been proven beyond reasonable doubt.
While the grove is the site of Osun's most sacred shrine, many Yoruba deities are also depicted here with sculptures that are centuries old and shrines where their devotees worship. Despite the sanctity attached to it, managing the grove is not without its own challenges.
There's no lumber that will come into this site that will not pray will sleep off 72 hours. So that before we wake up, we would have cut down all the trees. We do have butchers, and despite the native laws that we do use to operate, because here you are not supposed to hunt. If you are caught, you'll be taken to the enforcement agency through the authority of Osogbo. And because of developmental pressure, as the town grows, you are bound to see people wanting to build closer to the site, thereby giving you problem. You have a challenge, but God is helping us through that native law. That native law, don't cut, don't fish. And aside that, the native law, I will tell you authoritatively, because if all of us goes home, we have national security if they are here. If you eventually decide that you want to catch any fish, you will cook it from now till that kingdom come, it will not come. So you will definitely put yourself into trouble.
Once sparkling and clear and home to a variety of fish, today the sacred river is murky and brown. It is now under constant threat from pollution from waste disposal and other human activities. Another fascinating thing about the grove is this standalone suspended bridge right at the heart of the forest and just above the Osun River, built some 87 years ago. The bridge has no pillar holding it because they say the Osun goddess forbids it. One of the unique things to see at the grove is this suspension bridge. We understand it was built in 1935, commissioned in 1936, and the reason why the bridge was constructed was to enable people around here move goods now, especially palm products, from one end of the bridge to the other. And up till this day, the bridge is standing. It's one bridge a lot of tourists who come to this area love to see. Despite the gradual fading away of celebrated African culture and tradition, the Osun-Osogbo Sacred Grove is one cultural phenomenon that has not only stood the test of time, but also become a reference point for people from this part of the world. The grove remains more or less pristine, leaving visitors with this sense of peace and a connection to the dwellings of an elevated being and the ancient Yoruba tradition. Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal. How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Nigerians are wishing David Adeleke Davido a happy 30th birthday. We miss him terribly online, and our hearts go out to his family after such a tragic and painful loss. When we love you, we stand by you. PDP Lagos is fighting for their gubernatorial and presidential candidates. They love them like that. Nigerians love their own, or Nigerians love their oppressors. The trees fight for the axe because it was made from one of them. Nigerians cannot demand good leadership until we become good followers. Have you collected your PVC? Why not? The people saying you don't have PVC have misplaced their own. So go and pick your PVC today. The future of Nigeria is in your one single vote. Rather than the politicking going on where we're fighting one another on behalf of politicians who do not know us and only use us as statistics for their propaganda and political goals, we ought to start discussing real issues. Power generation, security. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is becoming a den of kidnappers. We cannot bury our heads in the sand like ostriches while governors are junketeering and pursuing their personal ambitions and interests. A bag of rice is still 42,000 naira. Bread is still 1,000 naira. And minimum wage, 30,000. We love our oppressors here in Nigeria. The people that amaze me the most are Nigerians who pray that God will give us the best leader out of all the candidates. Let me repeat it here, that God will not do for us what he has empowered us to do for ourselves. If you do not vote for that one person, anyone who gets in is because you didn't vote. And don't tell me votes don't count. Votes do count. That's why they beg for and buy votes. These general elections, the beavers will also ensure our votes count more than ever before. So go out, research all the candidates, stand by the one you believe in and the one that you know can lead Nigeria to progress. Don't sell your votes. You and I will succeed in 2022, and definitely Nigeria will succeed in 2023.
Deep inside Ekwe, along the Lagos Lagoon, more than 145 villages are tucked away, far from the bustling city life. Lagos State, a vast expanse of lagoons and creeks with substantial coastal terrain, is both a place of interest and enigma. A beautiful disaster, a seaweed from South America, has taken over the lagoon, stopping life in its tracks. As far as the eye can see, water hyacinths create the sensation of endless green fields peppered with brilliant pink flowers. Women are giving birth depending on nature only, and their children are growing up, waiting for power and education, hoping for the future.
àmọ́ gbéborùn kò jẹ́ ká jẹun abásíkì kò jẹ́ ká rí bí jáde tó olóyún ó máa ń bímọ sínú ọkọ̀ a lè lọ́jọ́ mẹ́ta ká tó gúnlẹ̀ sí tọ́ọ̀kì wàhálà yẹn wá pọ̀ jù àárí bí jẹ àwọn kọ́sítọ́mọ̀ wa tó bá lọ sí ọ̀sà báyìí a máa gbé oúnjẹ lọ fún wọn lọ́hùn ni àárí bí jáde ó dìtẹ́ẹ̀nì wa nílùú àárí bí lọ síbì kankan àdẹ̀rí iṣẹ́ kankan ọ̀sà là ń ṣe iṣẹ́ ọ̀sà là ń ṣe ṣé ti yẹn sì ọ̀nà mọ́tò yẹn gangan kán wá bá wa ṣe kọ́dà bá a la bíbí kán wá pa àkógbèmù kán bá a ṣe títì wa bá ti bá a ṣe títì wa à ní gbádùn.
From Ologbokere to Bodun, Oriba to Ibon. In coastal villages in Ekwe, people urgently need access to healthcare, clean water and sanitation, energy, and the means to ensure their livelihoods.
Omi mímu ó jẹ́ ìṣòro fún wa. Sometimes tá bá máa mu omi àfi ká gbé ọkọ̀ ká cross lọ sí other side láti lọ pọn omi borehole. kí cross sí other side yẹn máa ń dojú kọ water hyacinth tàbá máa cross. Ìgbà míì ẹnu ọmọ mi lè lọ kó já lo 3 hours ní ìrìn tí yóò yẹ kó ju 20 minutes. Tí ilẹ̀ bá ṣú wọn, ẹ̀fọn mosquito ló máa jẹ wọ́n tí ó máa tó wá fa àrùn sí wọn lára. A ò ní hospital tí ìjọba lè fi máa care fún. Ìṣòro ńlá là ń dojú kọ tí àgbàlagbà bá sick, especially tí àwọn obìnrin bá lóyún tán bá máa bímọ. Èmi ọkọ̀ la máa gbé láti bí ká tó dé Ìjìnrìn, èmi àti bímọ sínú ọkọ̀. Èmi ọmọ ẹ̀ á bímọ tán máa bleed tó jẹ́ pé èmi faint ká tó lè dé Ìjìnrìn. Àdẹ̀ tí ìrọ̀gbọ́n dá sí di wákàtí ìjọba náà láyé ń wojú ẹ̀. Àwọn àgbàlagbà wa tán bá ti dàgbà díẹ̀ tó tútù bá ti mú wọn àti gbé wọn dọ́sípítù náà wàhálà ni. Èmi tó jẹ́ pé ìrìn hospital tí ò yẹ kó ju 10 minutes or 15 minutes tó jẹ́ pé òbèlè kenú la máa lò ká tó lè gbé wọn dé hospital. Èmi àti dákẹ́ ká tó dọ̀hún.
Iṣẹ́ ọ̀sà ni ọkọ mi ń ṣe. Àdẹ̀ máa ń ẹja yẹn máa lọ ń tà. So àwọn ìgbébùnrin tó bá ti ìgbà bíbáyìí ó máa ń wùkú wa, àráyè ń jáde. A lè lo 3 days 4 days ní ẹ̀yìn bíbáyìí tá a ní ráyè jáde rárá láti jáde lọ ta àwọn ọjà wa kọ̀ọ̀kan bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣàṣọ ìgbébùnrin yẹn gbogbo wọn iṣẹ́ tá à ń ṣe yìí òun la fi ń ṣiṣẹ́ ń bí la fi ń jẹun. So tí gbébùnrin tá bá tún wá ti lọ dẹ ohun kọ̀ọ̀kan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ó máa ń ba gbogbo iṣẹ́ àwòrán yẹn ó máa ń bàjẹ́. So máa PCC ẹ̀ òun dẹ̀ la fi ń manage àfi ń jẹun bí. So tá bá dẹ̀ ti pé nǹkan yẹn bàjẹ́ ṣá àbí kọ̀ọ̀kan bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣògbọ́n dẹ̀ sí ìfẹ́fọ̀ àti ẹ̀tún máa wá owó láti tún fi lọ fi ra nǹkan ẹ̀mí. So àwọn gbébùnrin yẹn dẹ̀ máa ń disturb tẹ́ kó máa ń ba nǹkan yẹn jẹ́ so dẹ̀ máa ń PCC ẹ̀.
Mo jẹ́ ọmọ Ìkòròdú. Mo wá sí bíbá láti wá ṣe iṣẹ́ apẹja torí wọ́n máa ń pẹja ń lu yìí. Torí ẹ̀ mo kọ́ṣẹ́ mechanic. Mo nídìí owó torí pé iṣẹ́ tí mo kọ́ mo fẹ́ ra irinṣẹ́, mo dẹ̀ fẹ́ ṣe freedom. Torí mo wá sílùú láti wá owó láti wá ṣiṣẹ́ ọ̀sà.
Nǹkan tí mo rí ìbáyìí ni pé bí ìbáyìí bó ṣe wà kò sí iná ń bẹ̀. So school tó dẹ̀ wà ń bí ìbáyìí náà kẹrì kò tí sí tíṣà púpọ̀ níbẹ̀. Kò sí tíṣà púpọ̀ ń bí ìbáyìí school tó wà ń bí ìbáyìí. Bẹ́ẹ̀ kẹ́ wọ́n textbook tó máa ń fún wọn ní ìgboro yẹn wọ́n gbé wá sí bí ìbáyìí fún wọn student wọn ní bí ìbáyìí. Kò dẹ̀ tí wá sí títì kò tún sí omi kò tún sí anything bọ́ọ̀ oríṣiríṣi àwọn bọ́ọ̀ tó wà ní gbogbo kò sí ní bí ìbáyìí. So nǹkan tó ń tẹ́ wa ní bí ìbáyìí nìyẹn.
Basic sanitation is absent, since their source of drinking water, the lagoon, also serves as the main conduit for waste disposal.
We need to create a coastal development agency at the level of Lagos State that can look at housing, infrastructure, water supply, health system for these people. We need to make this environment comfortable for these people to live in. Lagos is not just about the central Lagos or metropolitan Lagos. First and foremost, we need a short-term intervention. Government needs to come and reach these people at their health, especially in the area of health challenges, water supply, and schooling. Secondly, as a long term, we need to create a coastal development agency at the level of state to address holistically all the problems encountered by these people.
This project is a call to action to support the sustainable development and human rights of these riverine communities.
I don't know how to swim, but when they load me in the boat, we were like 155 people in one boat. So when we are going to Italy, we have run many hours. So on the way going, our boat now capsized because of the waves, and our boat is pumping boat. So when the waves throw in and they load us about 3 boats, 2 at the front, we are at the back. When the waves come in a big way and throw, it capsized our boat. 65 people died in the same boat with me. About 30 girls and 35 boys died in the same boat. So when they are dying, they are sinking down. Some was catching my leg, some drawing my clothes out my bag, shouting, "Biggie, Biggie, Biggie, Biggie." That's how I remove the clothes. I stay hanging, holding the rope that I'm holding on top of the boat. That's how. So after everything, all of us, about 55 people, well, 155 people, the people that remain on top of boats, maybe they are not more than 80 people again. So everybody was crying that we are dying, no rescue. From 4 o'clock in the morning, our boat capsized. We are on top of the water till the next 4 o'clock in the evening. On the afternoon time, a helicopter come on top of us to come down like this a little bit. All of us was crying, raising hand up. They now carried the newborn baby, one woman having over there, to raise it up, to raise the baby up. In a way, the helicopter will see the baby. So we are shouting for rescue, rescue. So all of us was crying. I said, God, is it today I will die on top of sea? All of us crying. So as we are crying, the helicopter, they wind up, but I believe that they will be seeing us through the screen. After everything, when the helicopter left, it's like they caught the police people in the area. The police people now coming with a small boat to come and rescue us. When they rescue us, they will carry us to the prison to go and lock us. And when they lock us there, the Nigerians that are in that very highland will come and bail us with like 500 dinar. 500 dinar. When they bail us like 500 dinar, like they were using in form of 50,000 Nigeria. They use it to bail us out. They will go and lock us somewhere. Our family in Nigeria, we can be calling our family in Nigeria to pay 150,000 in their account. They will gain like 100,000. They are using it to do business. In my life, even if they told me that Libya is like America again, I cannot try that country anymore in my life because I suffered a lot, honestly.
Many thanks for joining us on News Now this morning. I am Abisola Adebayo. President Muhammadu Buhari is set to start an official trip to Niamey in the Republic of Niger, his spokesperson Garba Shehu said in a statement on Wednesday. The president will attend the African Union Summit on Industrialization and Economic Diversification, as well as the extraordinary session on African Continental Free Trade Area. Buhari will also attend the launching of the French version of the book entitled Muhammadu Buhari, The Challenges of Leadership. At the AFCTA event, Shehu said the extraordinary session will focus on adopting the Phase 2 protocols of the Continental Free Trade Area, as well as launching additional operation tools. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has officially unveiled the redesigned Naira note. President Buhari unveiled the new currency note on Wednesday morning in a ceremony before the Federal Executive Council meeting at the State House in Abuja. The redesigned notes presented to the public are the 1,500 and 200 naira, the country's highest currency denominations. Speaking during the unveiling, Buhari underscored the importance of redesigning the naira notes, saying it will help the country to address the issue of illicit financial flows, corruption, improve the economy and the value of the Nigerian currency.
Our local laws, specifically the Central Bank of Nigeria Act of 2007, grants the Central Bank of Nigeria the power to issue and redesign the Naira. In line with this power, the Central Bank Governor approached me earlier in this year to seek my permission to embark on a currency redesign project. I considered all the facts and reasons presented before me by the Central Bank. There was an urgent need to take control of currency in circulation and to address the hoarding of Naira banknotes outside the banking system, the shortage of clean and fit banknotes in circulation, and the increase in counterfeiting of high denomination Naira banknotes. It is on this basis that I gave my approval for the redesign of the 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1,000 Naira banknotes. The new Naira banknotes have been fortified with security features that made it difficult to counterfeit. These new banknotes will help the central bank design and implement better monetary policy objectives. They will also enrich our collective memory of Nigeria's heritage.
On his part, the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele says the introduction of new notes is a deliberate step by the government to check corruption and counterfeiting of the Naira.
And we will indeed be more intense in ensuring that the provisions of the law and our CBN regulations about the size and volume of currencies that people can hold or can carry or can withdraw, that we would insist that this is done going forward. And I think Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria is prepared at this time to move towards a cashless economy. And that is the reason why, following the redesign and issuance of this note, we would go forward to insisting that cashless will be nationwide. What we are saying is this. We announced this program October 26, 2022. And we have said that from today, this currency that is issued will be legal tender in Nigeria or all over the world, wherever it is going to be accepted. So between October 26th and January 31, 2023, we believe that is over 100 days. We have made adequate arrangement. The banks have been told that they will keep their currency processing centers open from Mondays to Saturdays, even to late hours every day.
Meanwhile, Nigerians have already begun expressing exactly how they feel about the newly redesigned Naira notes, both on social media and on the streets. While some Nigerians lamented that it is a waste of resources considering the country's economic situation, others are of the opinion that it is a welcome development as it will improve money circulation within the country. Speaking to TV360 Nigeria, some Lagos residents say there is not much difference between the old and the new notes. They, however, urge the Central Bank of Nigeria to reconsider the of the old notes.
It's a good innovation, it's good. If we see there is so much mutilated Naira notes in circulation right now, so it also helped to remove such mutilated currencies in circulation, and the new mints being brought into the circulation. We are nearing the deadline. It's also within the mandate of the CBN to look at it and decide whether to extend or not. But for now, they have given the policy and they've given the deadline. We as the masses, we have to comply with it.
New Naira note for a change of color of a note. It's not worth it at all. I don't think it is. It's not. It's still a long time till everybody gets to, you know, go to the bank and change everything. But you know, Nigerian bank, their service is always bad, but it's a good time. If people don't meet up, they can see extended. There's no death penalty or anything. So it doesn't really matter the deadline.
Changing the money is not the problem. Let the government provide a enable environment for business to strive, quick job employment for people. Not changing new Naira note. Changing new Naira note will not do anything. It doesn't worth the stress. I prefer the old notes compared to the new notes. Because the new notes, from what I've seen so far in social media, they look alike. So I'll prefer the old notes than the new notes. Time frame is too small. I think Central Bank should extend the time for those living in the rural area, those who don't have accessible to the bank. So I think the government should, increase the time frame. It's too small.
Analysts have also weighed in on the redesigning and launch of the 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes. The redesign, according to Margaret Ogundano, a former deputy director of the Central Bank of Nigeria, is a welcome development. Speaking in an interview to TV360 Nigeria, Ogundano explained that the new policies by the CBN will help checkmate frivolous activities and spendings and in turn boost the nation's economy.
What I can perceive by virtue of my experience in the banking industry for so many years, the volume of money outside the banking system is bigger than the one within the banking system. And when you look at the invisible traders, those of them who still use cash, what they are using is usually the 100 Naira and the 50 Naira, and the 20 Naira, many of which are mutilated, and many of them many of which are not even available in the markets when you go and buy some things in the market. So there will be need, in my own personal opinion, for an extension of the dates. And like other people have said, we need to ensure that with an extension of that date, which is also within the purview and the authority of Central Bank, many people in the rural community will be able to bring out whatever they have and now change for the new Naira note. And when you look at it largely, the currencies being changed, being redesigned, they are not the 100 Naira nor the 50 Naira. So Central Bank did the right thing by changing the ones that are, should I say, bigger in terms of value of the currency. That's one point. The second point is that this is an election year. I think it's a good development that Central Bank decided to redesign the notes. I've been seeing a lot of videos and messages on the social media of people who had hoarded, who are now trying to find a way. Some of them hoarded it under the bedrock of their homes, some of them under the foundation of their houses. And now this is election year. And electioneering means people want to spend money. So that will cast a restriction, which I think is a good development on people just throwing money around anyhow, because such money will not be available.
President Muhammadu Buhari has nominated the Special Assistant on Social Media, Loretta Onoche, as the chairman of the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. Buhari, in a letter to Senate President Ahmed Lawan, also announced the nomination of 15 others as NDDC board members. The president requested the Senate confirm Onoche and other nominees of the NDDC board.
Mr. President, dear distinguished Senate President, confirmation of appointment of chairman and members of Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, in accordance with the provision of Section 2, subsection 2A of the Niger Delta Development Commission Act, Cap N86, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, I hereby present the names of nominees as chairman and members of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, for confirmation by the Senate. Copies of their curriculum vitae are attached herewith. 1. Loretta Ifanyi Onoche, chairman, Delta State. Delta State. South-South. While I hope that the request will receive the usual expeditious consideration and confirmation of the Senate, please accept, distinguished Senate President, the assurances of my highest consideration.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mahmoud Yakubu, has reassured Nigerians that polling unit level results will be uploaded in real time and the integrity of the process will be upheld. The chairman, who made this known on Wednesday as he received the delegation of the Commonwealth Pre-Election Mission at INEC headquarters in Abuja, said the commission will continue to deploy technologies to ensure free and fair elections. He further informed the delegation of the massive improvement recorded by the commission since the 2019 elections, adding that INEC is intent on an election that meets international standard.
Accredits voters on election day. Now it is a matter of law that all voters in Nigeria must be accredited using that device. And in addition to that, we also have a system of uploading polling unit level results in real time on election day. And the commission has been doing so. So far, we deployed that system for 105 constituencies where off-cycle elections and by-elections were held. And we'll continue to deploy these technologies to protect the integrity of the process. We want to assure the international community that Nigeria will not let you down. The quality of elections will always improve. And most importantly for us, Nigerians also need to be assured and reassured that polling unit level results will be uploaded in real time and the integrity of the process will be upheld.
Nigeria is a very important and essential member country for the Commonwealth. And Nigeria is also very important for Africa. And this is one of the elections that has all the eyes of the world, really, not just in the region, but of the world. And so the Commonwealth, as a partner and as an international, organization, is very much interested in what goes on in Nigeria.
Ahead of the All Progressives Congress APC presidential rally scheduled to be held on Saturday, November 26th at the Teslim Balogun Stadium in Surulere, Lagos, the Lagos State chapter of the APC has called on all members and supporters of the party to come out en masse to show support for its presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu. Speaking at a press briefing in Lagos on Wednesday, the Director General of the Lagos State APC Campaign Council, Gani Solomon, explained that the event would hold between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. He added that security and health agencies have been employed to ensure the success of the event. He also urged all participants to shun violence and be of good conduct, as the outcome of the rally will have an impact on the support from other states.
I wish to seize this opportunity to invite all our party leaders and members to this epoch-making and carnival-like event, as it gives an opportunity for our presidential candidates, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to address the people on his manifesto's happily tagged Renewed Hope. As a responsible political party, it is imperative to seek the cooperation of members of the general public as regards the need for temporary diversion of traffic and mass movement of supporters within the vicinity of the rally. We need to reassure you that the Nigerian Police Force, LASMA, and other law enforcement agencies will be fully mobilized to ensure an event devoid of the security infractions and traffic.
Lagos are going to turn out in their thousands to come and stand up for their own, in their millions, to come and stand up for their own, to ensure that we can show to the whole world that Lagos is, for Asiwaju, clean, top to bottom, 100%. And we believe that that would also impact on the support we get in other places, because they would see strongly that if his people can support him this much, then we have no choice but to support him.
Meanwhile, the Lagos State government has announced traffic diversion for the upcoming All Progressives Congress presidential and gubernatorial rallies, scheduled to hold on Saturday, 27th 26th of November 2022 at the Lagoon Stadium in Surulere, Lagos. Lagos State Commissioner for Transportation Frederick Olade, who made this known on Wednesday through a statement released by the ministry, advised Lagosians to plan their movement around the Teslim Balogun Stadium, Funshaw Williams Avenue and Alaji Masha areas in Lagos. He warned that human and vehicular movement around the affected areas would be regulated, as there would be series of traffic diversions for safety and security management purposes. The United Kingdom says it is closely watching political parties and individuals as it relates to inciting violence during the 2023 elections in the country. The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Katrina Lang, said this on Wednesday during a meeting with members of the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party in Abuja. She said the UK is not supporting any party or presidential candidate in the 2023 elections, adding that the sanction of visa denial is in place for anyone found culpable over electoral violence. We'll take a break now and return with more stories. Please stay with us.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians are saying in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. In case you missed any of our news bulletins or for more updates, do log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria, on Facebook at TV360 Online. Mainland China reported more than 31,000 COVID infections for Wednesday, including cases without symptoms. That surpassed the 29,317 eyes seen in mid-April during the Shanghai lockdown. However, daily COVID infections with symptoms remain well below the eyes seen in April. Nearly 90% or more of total COVID cases reported in recent days have been asymptomatic, the data showed. The southern city of Guangzhou, the nation's capital of Beijing, and the southwestern municipality of Chongqing have been the highest hit in the latest COVID wave, but nearly all of China's 31 province-level regions have reported new COVID infections with and without symptoms each day. The rise in vaccine-preventable diseases such as measles and polio in African countries has been childhood vaccines at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. A report by the Tony Blair Institute shows that the COVID-19 put some health systems under immense pressure and stretched others beyond their capacity. According to the World Health Organization, almost 17,500 cases of measles were recorded in Africa between January and March 2023, marking a 400% increase compared with the same period in 2021. Meanwhile, the cases were from 20 African countries. We'll take another break now and return with more stories in business. The Senate has asked the National Council on Privatization and the Bureau of Public Enterprise to suspend indefinitely the proposed concession of the 700-megawatt station in Niger State, pending the conclusion of an investigation by its Committee on Power. The upper chamber is requesting the deferment of the planned concession after lawmakers debated a motion sponsored by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Power, Gabriel Suswam, who explained that it will be unacceptable to concession the power plant without ensuring accountability and proper management of unsettled external loans tied to the project. Federal lawmakers, including the Senate President Ahmed Lawan, supported the stance. They point out the abysmal failure of the privatization of the electricity sector. After 2 days of careful deliberation, the Policy Setting Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria earlier this week decided to tighten interest rates by increasing MPR by 16.5%. This hike, according to the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, is a means to ensure that inflation rate is tamed and investors' confidence is restored in the nation's economy. Despite a steady increase in MPR in the past 3 consecutive MPC meetings, inflation pressure has not moderated as expected. Our correspondent, Folashade Ogumide, tells us more in this report.
This is a 288th meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, its last for the year 2022. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria voted to increase the benchmark interest rate by 100 basis points to 16.5%, the highest since 2001. While acknowledging the concerns this decision may elicit, the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, says a hike in interest rate is crucial to taming inflation.
At 21.09%, inflation is already hurting growth. If we did not see this high level of inflation in the last 7 months, we would have been damn optimistic that growth would have hit close to 4%. But because of the aggressive rate of rise in inflation, it is hurting growth at this level in Nigeria. And that's the reason you would see that we are taking this very, very seriously.
Still dwelling on the problem of inflation, the CBN boss explained that another strategy it plans to adopt is to reduce the circulation of high denominations of 500 naira and 1,000 naira notes to curb inflationary pressure.
Increasing the high denomination bills is also part of what may even be fueling inflation. So in fact, yes, we will launch 200, 500, 1,000. Over time, we will reduce the volume of 500 and 1,000 in circulation. Let people carry 50 naira around. If you want to do high value transactions, embrace online, embrace our agency program, embrace our mobile banking program. That is what you need.
The devastating flooding experienced in more than 30 states of the Federation has ravaged properties worth trillions of naira and taken the lives of about 500 people. Also worrisome is the number of farmlands and farm produce submerged by water, triggering concerns of an impending food crisis. The CBN governors have assured that the federal government has in place strategic reserves to contain an upward.
Since the flooding is beginning to recede, we would aggressively go into a dry season planting program that will make sure that the impact of the rising food prices does not linger for too long, so that we can have good control on the price of our agri products, which eventually will feed through into the prices of ultimately the goods that our people consume generally.
The CBN governor also reassured that contrary to speculations, the Apex Bank would continue to aggressively drive its smallholders farmers program, which the CBN governor disclosed has so far gobbed a total of 1.07 trillion naira. Folashade Ogumide, TV360, Abuja.
Oil prices all trickled down on Thursday, hovering around 2-month low, as the proposed price cap on Russian oil from Group of 7 nations was considered higher than the current trading levels, alleviating concerns over tight supply. A greater than expected build in U.S. gasoline inventories and widening COVID controls in China added to downward pressure. Brent crude futures dipped 21 cents to $85.20 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell by 16 cents to $77.78 a barrel. Both benchmarks plunged more than 3% on Wednesday on news the planned price cap on Russian oil could be above the current market level. Malaysia's king appointed long-time opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim as Prime Minister on Thursday, and he will be sworn in at 5 p.m., ending 5 days of unprecedented post-election crisis after inconclusive polls. Anwar's appointment caps a 3-decade-long political journey from a protege of veteran leader Mahathir Mohamad to protest leader, to a prisoner convicted of sodomy, to opposition leader, and finally Prime Minister. His supporters expressed hope that Anwar's government would head off a return to historic tension between the ethnic Malay Muslim majority and ethnic Chinese and Indian minorities across the country. Belgium made a bright start to their 2022 World Cup campaign as they defeated Canada 1-0 on Wednesday. Batshuayi's goal in the 44th minute was enough to earn Belgium the maximum points. All effort for Canada to level the score proved abortive as Belgium picked the maximum points and also topped the group that consists of Morocco and Tunisia. Well, that's all on News Now for this morning. Many thanks for watching.
The majestic river Niger, rising from the highlands of Guinea, it meanders through many countries to Nigeria, slicing through the commercial city of Onitsha and the beautiful Asaba on her way to the Delta, where she discharges into the Gulf of Guinea in the Atlantic Ocean. Stretching to about 4,000 kilometers, River Niger is the third longest in Africa and provides livelihood to the people of the many communities on its bank. From here, they irrigate their farmlands and fish in its deep waters. Aside providing veritable mode of transportation, it is also a source of power generation. In fact, many people, particularly in Anambra and Delta states, depend on the river for their sustenance. Back in the day, Canoes were the primary means of transportation on the river and served to convey goods and people from one bank to the other. But in 1965, 5 years after independence, the first Niger bridge constructed by Dumez was completed. With the inauguration of the bridge, the main east-west connection in Nigeria was created. For Southeasterners, homecoming is everything. They return en masse at festive seasons to celebrate with kinsmen. But quite often, the frightening gridlock on the old bridge turns the homecoming trip into a nightmare. Femi Adesina recalls the harrowing experience of a friend who spent 6 hours trying to cross from one end of the bridge to the other.
That friend I had known long before now called me and said, please, what could I do? I said, what was the issue? He said he had been on the River Niger Bridge for 6 hours. 6 whole hours. He said, can I call somebody so that they can intervene and let the bridge flow? He said, 6 hours from the foot of that bridge, that when traffic flows, you can cross that bridge in 5-7 minutes. He said 6 hours they had spent on that bridge, and there was no hope that they would get to the other side.
But then there are those with more bitter tales to tell. On this same bridge, homebound families are known to have been trapped for hours and days on end.
I have slept there, so I can have a first-hand experience of the challenge. So in situations like that, it's a nightmare, because you may even come there thinking that you have stayed 1 day. Some people tell you they have stayed 2 days, especially during festivities. It's usually a very major nightmare.
Aside the nightmarish experience of the users, the bridge also poses danger to motorists as a result of the heavy load it bears.
I've had awful experiences flying through that Niger bridge. It has been an awful experience where we have a dilapidated bridge that for so many years it has lasted. It was so dilapidated that sometimes you'd be scared that you might end up having your car get into the river. So it's an awful experience.
There has been lots and lots of tales about that place. We've had records of the bridge quivering, motorists on the bridge actually feeling the quakes and tremors from the bridge. So it was, in one way or the other, going to end up being a nightmare. It was actually a catastrophe just waiting to happen.
Now, 57 years after it was built, the second Niger bridge is coming up quickly to alleviate the plight of the people, reduce the load on the old bridge, and boost the socio-economic potentials of the Southeast.
The bridge is very nice. It's very good.
So we believe that since the new Niger bridge have passed, we believe that development can come.
Truly, the construction of a second bridge across the River Niger had long been identified as the panacea to the seemingly intractable gridlock and frustration on the old bridge. Until 2018, it was the subject of intense politicking. While President Shehu Shagari promised to build the bridge, General Ibrahim Babangida challenged Nigerian engineers to design it. From General Sani Abacha to successive governments, nothing much was done except perhaps for President Olusegun Obasanjo, who actually flagged off the construction of the bridge on the eve of his departure in 2007. His successor, Alhaji Omar Yaradua, had a short stay in office, but ahead of the 2015 general elections, President Goodluck Jonathan performed another groundbreaking ceremony and promised to do the bridge.
I remember that clearly. I was in my office, in the Sun newspapers, on that day, and I remember crystal clear that flag off and the things that were said about that bridge. And it's amazing that nothing happened. And then the day the then President Jonathan also went to that side, I remember clearly. That's why it's baffling that after all those body movements, nothing happened.
It was being used for politics. Every 4 years, they do flag off, they do ceremony. After the flag off, they remove everything, and then the bridge is forgotten. After another 4 years, at every election period, canopies are set, and then another flag off. So that was why when the president now gave his word, knowing who he is, that he's going to do this bridge, considered it a flagship project, and then followed through. Today, we're no more talking about flag off, we're now talking of commissioning.
The era that was most significant vis-a-vis Second Niger Bridge was the 16 years of the People's Democratic Party. Anytime elections were approaching, they would go there, make some body movements as if things were going to happen concerning the Second Niger Bridge. Once elections came and they got the votes of the Southeasterners, they disappeared. The next time, when elections were coming again, they would pretend that there was movement on Second Niger Bridge, and it would fizzle out again. Then came Muhammadu Buhari, a man from the northwest of the country, from Dara. In terms of affinity with the southeast, it's not much, except that we're all Nigerians.
Interestingly, while little was done during the period of bumper harvests from oil sales, President Muhammadu Buhari, who arrived the scene at a time of lean financial resources, became the game changer. Without the boastful promises and grandstanding of the past, President Buhari plunged headlong into the project. Today, he has succeeded where others before him failed.
I think I'm going to say it unequivocally that President Muhammadu Buhari, that is one of the greatest achievements that he has done for Nigeria. I'm not talking about Southeast, I'm talking about Nigeria as a whole. Because without that bridge, there will be no movement from Southeast to North, from Southeast to West. So even going outside Nigeria, a lot of folks that come to Aba, buy goods, come to Onitsha, buy goods, now have to transfer those goods to other nation states.
It is encouraging, it is nice to see that for the first time, we actually have an administration that has looked into that problem and preferred a real solution in the new Niger Bridge. So I think it's a positive step, one that if more of our leaders would emulate, it would make Nigeria a much better place for us to live in.
The Second Niger Bridge is an engineering marvel being executed by Julius Berger, the international construction giant. Stretching to a length of 1.6 kilometers, the bridge is equipped with a 10.3 kilometer highway. The toll plazas in both directions of the facility have 8 lanes leading to the bridge. The Owerri interchange on the Onitsha-Owerri road is designed to provide direct access to the bridge from Obosi in Anambra State to Asaba in Delta. Construction of 2 secondary bridges at Amakom and Atani communities are also part of the total package.
All the 16 booths have been completed. The operation building also completed. Then the workshops and other ones, security house, they've been completed. Then the approach road on this project, we have 3 kilometers on Asaba end. Like I said, has been constructed. We only need to put the final layer of the asphalt. Then on the Onitsha end, the Anambra end, we have completed more than half of it.
On the eastern side of the bridge lies the ever-bustling Onitsha, a commercial hub that embodies the resilient and enterprising spirit of the people of the southeast. The Onitsha main market, reputed to be the largest in Africa, attracts visitors from across the continent and contributes to the hectic commercial environment of the city. As a result of the intense economic activities in Onitsha and beyond, traffic holdup on the old bridge is perpetual and frustrating. But the ongoing 7-kilometer approach road on the Onitsha side of the new facility will help to eliminate congestion and provide direct access to the second bridge. The idea is to connect the southeast and south-south regions seamlessly to the rest of the country.
You see, you are talking of a bridge that links Anambra State, Southeast, Abia, Imo, to the entire Nigeria, coming through Lagos. All right, that is the route. All the containers that come from Lagos coming to the east, that's the route they use. It's quite enormous. It's something that, if you look at the economic benefit, you get very excited. There's quite a lot we can benefit from it, and it's going to impact very positively on the economy of the Southeast.
It's going to lead to free flow of traffic. Of course, even our people who reside in other parts of the world, or in other parts of the country, once there is a period of festivities where all of our people return home to celebrate Christmas, Easter, and what have you, they will not hesitate. Most of them will come back home, and coming back home brings happiness home. Economically, economic will become viable because goods will move freely between other parts of the country and the southeast. Business will boom and everything will pick up.
On the other side of the bridge lies the serene city of Asaba, the capital of Delta State and once the colonial headquarters of the Southern Protectorate of Nigeria. Strategically located on the bank of the river, Asaba serves as the main entryway to the southeast from the Lagos axis. Here, traffic is usually heavy on its main highway, but to ease the flow and divert vehicles to the new bridge, a 3.3-kilometer approach road is also being constructed.
The second Niger bridge is the artery between the western part and the eastern part of the country and the rest of the country. You can't quantify what it will do economically. Even apart from the economy, how about the comfort of the people? Going home at festive seasons, our brethren from east of the Niger love to travel at Easter, at Christmas, and other festive seasons. You cannot imagine the relief they will have on that bridge. They have slept on that bridge before. My friend spent 6 hours last December, but people who slept till the next day have that experience. So the relief will come for them.
President Muhammadu Buhari is a man of few words. When in 2018 he gave assurance that his administration was going to deliver the project, many people may have taken it with a pinch of salt and perhaps waved it off as a familiar story, a tale by moonlight repeatedly told by past politicians without commensurate action. 4 years after, the dream is set to become a reality.
I thank God I'm alive to see the working of that second Niger bridge. They have gone a long way. I am happy over what I see today. They are trying. They are trying. I pray, let the Chukwu Okike Abioma guide them so far they have gone.
It's been a subject of serious politicking over the years. So our people kind of developed a feeling that it will never come. But all of a sudden, here comes President Buhari, who now announced that he was going to do the bridge and immediately started work.
It waited this long because they made it political. Instead of really pulling up their bootstraps and working, they turned it to a political thing. That was why whenever elections were approaching, they would go there to hoodwink the people of the region to get their votes. They turned it into a political thing. But then came President Buhari, who was not interested in fooling anybody, who was not interested in the politics of it, was just interested in action.
Under this administration as well, the long-abandoned Onitsha River Port has been revived and may soon become a port of final destination for goods bound for the southeast, thereby decongesting the existing seaports in Lagos, Port Harcourt and other cities. Stakeholders are of the view that the second Niger bridge will boost activities at the river port and complement the multimodal transportation initiative of the administration.
Today, we talk of multimodal forms of transportation. You talk about the road, you talk about the rail, you talk about water, and things like that. So, this multi-approach is something that has a lot to do with impacting on the economy. So, here is the Onitsha River Port that has to deal with the water, and then here is the second Niger bridge that has to do with the roads. But both complement each other.
To ensure compliance to schedule and quality delivery, the project site has witnessed high-profile visitors lately. Aside the Minister of Works, Babatunde Fashola, who pays regular supervisory visits to the site, the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, recently led top functionaries of the federal government to see the state of readiness of the bridge.
The Federal Executive Council has passed tolling policy, national tolling. National is for the nation as a whole. So which one will be concession, toll fares, and so on, that's secondary. Important, let us finish this road.
Similarly, the Minister of Finance, Hajia Zainab Ahmad, also came calling with the Managing Director of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, Mr. Ucheoji, and Chief Executives of other relevant agencies. For the Minister, it was an inspection and assessment visit to be sure the 157 billion naira so far released has been well utilized.
I can report to Mr. President and say I have seen where all the 157 billion naira has gone to. This is a project that is very dear to His Excellency the President. It is designed to uplift the lives and livelihoods of the people of the southeastern part and the southwestern part of our country.
Indeed, the transportation industry has experienced unprecedented turnaround in the past 7 years. For a critical sector that supports socio-economic growth, it's never been this good. Apart from equipping the National Inland Waterways Authority to provide navigable pathways for the movement of goods and services, stupendous amount of resources have also been committed into developing a functional rail transportation system. In addition to the second Niger and local Oweto bridges, solid road networks that crisscross the country and connect the geopolitical zones have been constructed.
When the story of the Buhari administration is to be told, of course, we will talk about the second Niger bridge, we will talk about the Bodo Boni bridge, we will talk about the local Oweto bridge, we will talk about Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, we will talk about the new ultramodern airport in Lagos, the one in Kano, the one in Port Harcourt. We will talk about the new runway in Enugu. We will talk about so many things.
Just as the River Niger provides legitimate employment and sustenance for many families, construction activities at the new facility have also given jobs and livelihood to many people from the region. In addition to this legacy infrastructure, Critical road projects and monuments are also being executed in the zone. Despite these huge investments, political detractors had actually tried to sell the false narrative of hatred and marginalization to some gullible natives of the area.
With the developmental strides that the president has taken to the south, it's not just the second Niger bridge. What about the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway, which the president made sure that that rehabilitation of such road is completed? Other giant projects that the president has started and also completed in the southeast is an evidence that the president indeed does not hate the southeast.
Don't forget that time was when Southeasterners, people of Igbo extraction, were controlling the levers of development. I'll give you an example. The Deputy Senate President from Southeast, Deputy Speaker from Southeast, Chairman Senate Committee on Works Southeast, Chairman House Committee on Works Southeast, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy Southeast, Secretary to Government of the Federation Southeast. And all through those periods, not 1 kilometer of our roads, federal roads, that were in terrible state, not 1 kilometer was addressed. And all these people I mentioned are from Southeast. Now it took somebody else who is not from Southeast to now address this infrastructural decay. Now face the reconstruction of these roads, this critical infrastructure. Just to mention a few of the things that this administration has done in the Southeast. And then somebody goes back and says he hates Southeast. How does you demonstrate hate?
This president bears malice to nobody. And he has cared for the Southeast as much as he cares for other parts of the country.
The second Niger bridge is an important national asset. Aside easing traffic on the old bridge, it is an inter-regional integrator with the capability of boosting economic activities and development in the southeast. Already, the people are beginning to tap into the huge investment opportunities that come with the bridge.
You know our people, we are business people. We understand the dynamics and we take advantage of opportunities. It will bring a lot of development to the southeast, a lot. And even south-south, because the bridge is coming from Asaba to Onitsha and vice versa. So the development is not only for south, it's also for south-south.
Truly, when the story of the Muhammadu Buhari administration is told, the second Niger bridge will be recorded among its greatest achievements.
When President Buhari would have been done and is gone to have his due retirement, and the story is being told, what would never be forgotten will be his footprints on the sands of time in terms of infrastructure.
I don't know how to swim, but when they load me in the boat, we were like 155 people in one boat. So when we are going to Italy, we have run many hours. So on the way going, our boat now capsized because of the waves. And our boat is pumping boats. So when the waves throw in and they load us about 3 boats, 2 at the front, 3 at the back. When the waves come in a big way and throw, it capsized our boat. 65 people died in the same boat with me. About 30 girls and 35 boys died in the same boat. So when they are dying, they are sinking down. Some was catching my leg, some drawing my clothes on my back, shouting, "Biggie, Biggie, Biggie, Biggie." That's how I remove the clothes. I stay hanging, holding the rope that I'm holding on top of the boat. That's how. So after everything, all of us, about 55 people, well, 155 people, the people that remain on top of boats, maybe they are not more than 80 people again. So everybody was crying that we are dying, no rescue. From 4 o'clock in the morning, our boat capsized. We are on top of the water till the next 4 o'clock in the evening. On the afternoon time, a helicopter come on top of us to come down like this a little bit. All of us was crying, raising hand up. They now carry the newborn baby, one woman having over there, to raise it up, to raise the baby up in a way the helicopter will see the baby. So we are shouting for rescue, rescue. So all of us was crying. I said, God, is it today I will die on top of sea? All of us crying. So as we are crying, the helicopter, they wind up, but I believe that they will be seeing us through the screen. After everything, when the helicopter left, it's like they caught the police people in the area. The police people now coming with a small boat to come and rescue us. When they rescue us, they will carry us to the prison to go and lock us. And when they lock us there, the Nigerians that are in that very highland will come and bail us with like 500 dinar. 500 dinar. When they bail us like 500 dinar, like they were using in form of 50,000 Nigeria. They use it to bail us out. They will go and lock us somewhere. Our family in Nigeria, we can be calling our family in Nigeria to pay 150,000 in their account. Then we gain like 100,000. They use me to do business. In my life, even if they told me that Libya is like America again, I cannot try that country anymore in my life because I suffered a lot, honestly.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Deji Badimasi. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, in its Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index report, which was launched last week, revealed that 133 million Nigerians, which represents 63% of the country's population, are currently living in poverty. The survey, which sampled over 56,000 households across the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, conducted between November 2021 and February 2022, states that 65% of poor Nigerians, which is that, of course, representing 86 million people, live in the north, while 35% of poor Nigerians, which is nearly 47 million people, live in the south. The measure used to calculate the figure was based on the Multidimensional Poverty Index, which contains several components, including health, living standard, education, work, and shocks. While the report identifies Sokoto State as having the most poverty levels across states with 91%, Ondo State ranked the lowest with 27%. Now, children, women, and persons living with disabilities are the worst hit with the poverty menace. Let's try to break down the figures so that you have a clear idea of what I'm actually talking about. There you have the sample size. The sample size, of course, precisely 56,610 households across 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. And let me say this, the National Bureau of Statistics said, now these households were picked based on senatorial districts. I did talk about the dimension earlier. And then look at this, 65% of poor people live in the north, and then 35% live in the south. Sokoto State has the highest poverty rate, 91%, the highest in the country. We'll be discussing that in a short while. Ondo State, of course, we did talk about that. Ondo State in the southwest of the country has the least poverty rate at 27%. Don't forget, it's a multi-dimensional poverty rate, and these are the dimensions: health, education, living standard, work, and shocks. Works, of course, will refer to employment, unemployment, underemployment. Shocks, of course, you would have security there. Then the multidimensional poverty is highest in rural areas. So 72% of Nigerians who live in rural areas are poor. This, of course, is the highest poverty rate in the country. So it means the majority of Nigerians who are poor actually live in rural areas. Urban multidimensional poverty rate is just around 42%. Then let's go to child multidimensional poverty index now. 67% of children 0 to 17 multidimensionally are poor. So you have 67% of children who are really poor, and 51% of all poor people are children. So of the 133 million people who are poor in this country, 51% of them are children. 90% of these children actually live in rural areas. I mean, 90% are rural children. And 90% of Northeast and Northwest children are poor. 90%. And then 75% of Southeast children are poor. For Southwest, it is 65.1%. Unfortunately, we don't have the figure for South and North Central. And then the child poverty in every state of the country is above 50%. And look at that. Bayelsa, Sokoto, Gombe, Kebbi have over 95% of child poverty in the country. So if you're looking like for the poverty capital for children in this country, you'll find that the capitals now, several capitals I should say, Bayelsa, Sokoto, Gombe, and Kebbi, they are the poverty capitals for children in Nigeria. We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, I'll be discussing this with some experts. Stay with us, don't go away.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Now let's discuss those figures further. I'm now being joined on the program by Ahmed Shehu, who is the coordinator, Peace Ambassadors for Humanitarian Aids and Empowerment. He joins us live from Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. And joining us from another part of Lagos is Richard Adeyinka, who is the CEO, Data Home Research and Communication. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Shehu, in Maiduguri. You look at the data now put out by the MBS, especially as it concerns the North, are clearly showing that the Northeast, for instance, has the highest, Northeast and Northwest now, have the highest rate of child poverty. Does that come to you as a surprise?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. Well, for us from this side of the country, we are not surprised because if you look at a community that has been affected by insurgency for 13 years, where people cannot be able to go and farm, despite that 70% of the population of the region are farmers. This is what we are expecting. It may even be worse than this. You have people who have lost their means of livelihood. You have people who once they are breadwinners of their community and of the population who have power to now beg for them to survive. So for us to be champions in this new index, I think it's not a surprise. Looking at the population that of the region, and now what we have is about 63% of the total population of Nigerians are affected by this poverty, and out of this, 87 of this is only 47 is only from the south, while we are leading with 86 million. I think out of that, I'm not surprised. And even before the insurgency, as you know, the Northeast is one of the most ravaged regions. Look at the indexes in terms of education. We are leading, that is out of school children. And then coupled with this, from the Northeast, 13 years of insurgency, and from the Northwest, the issue of the banditry and then kidnapping that have made people to be hopeless and lose their means of livelihood. I think we are not surprised with this, coupled with the factors that even before there's the main aspect that everybody recognizes, the issue of lack of good governance, which really impacted and which is one of the reasons that is attributed to the issue of the insurgency and even what is happening in the Northeast. So for me, I think we are not surprised with this.
And for you, I mean, what exactly does it say about what government now needs to do, especially at the local level? Because in this case now, you look at the data released by the MBS, clearly it shows that the majority of Nigerians poor are in the rural areas. So, and the majority of the poor in this country are children, and most of these children you find in the rural areas, even in the north of the country.
Yeah. Honestly, we need to go back to the drawing board, because what this is saying is, despite all the effort of the government and other stakeholders, like it's not yet Uhuru, because you see there is a disconnect between actually the grassroots and then the governance. Talking about, for instance, in the Northeast, you see a lot of actors here supporting in terms of humanitarian support. But despite this, you see the level of support provided, the end usually did not even justify the means. And talking about the federal government, I've been involved with some of these processes of the federal government, but I think my call, next year by this time when we are having an index, I assume we have a new government. And I think the new government should develop different strategy of reaching out to the poor, because the one we are currently having, actually, to me, it's not very transparent and it's not very inclusive, because you can find people being supported, and when you ask them what is the process of getting this support and is there any means of involving the civil society and even monitoring what is happening, it doesn't exist. So for us to get it right, I think all of us, we need to come to the drawing board, design a process that is all inclusive and that is encompassing. Most of the empowerment stop at the poverty alleviation process you see happening in this part of the region is by the politician who collect it from the federal or state government and then try to give it to people that really matters to them or their loyalists. And with this, you cannot be able to address the poverty unless we work with the community, especially traditional religious leaders who are the custodian in the community and who really knows what is happening. So for me, I think democracy here is fine, but actually we really need to go back to the drawing board and design how we work with the community. Or at the end, as we can see, things are really falling apart in every part of the country where people are poor for us. If we do not provide the needed enabling environment for people to get their means of livelihood. I think I'm not an optimist, but what I'm saying is the conflict we're having here is not going to end. And you see a lot of people join the conflict because for them just to survive, because we have experienced this in part of the state in the lecture when people were given as less as 50,000 for them to join the insurgency. So sometimes it's about your ability to get food to eat or to see what bandwagon you have to join. And I think this is a challenge to whoever is coming to govern this region, that we really need to fight the poverty, not insecurity. Insecurity has direct relationship with the issue of the poverty. When you address poverty, you are indirectly addressing the insecurity.
I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you. Let me come to you, Richard. Shehu did talk about something important as to how, for instance, he said, you look at the social welfare program of the government, whether government at the state or federal level, the way, for instance, materials, whether you call them relief materials or materials that are actually shared to help people get out of poverty, especially in the northeast of the country. Whether you're talking about relief, the way it is done, it's obviously not appropriate, not the right way. Now, how do you think this index, how important is this index now in guiding future government policies as far as poverty eradication is concerned?
Well, I think it's a form of need assessment that has been done right now for any government. It's a template for any serious politician that is coming into governance, whether at the northeast or northwest, or even at all states of the federation. We say that even the Bayelsa rivers, they are part of this, despite the big money they make from 30% derivation and other sources. So it is across board. Those in government must realize that they hold the nation this responsibility. Get to the rural areas. Governance is lacking.
Clearly, we now know where the problems are.
Yes, governance is lacking at the local government level, and that is why whatever we do, we have to allow the local government to work, because they are the closest to the people. The man in Abuja really doesn't know up to 5% of the geographical area called Nigeria. So it is the local government chairmen and the officials who know these people, who live with them, who work with them. So we have the responsibility to make the local government to work, perform effectively. Restructuring is a must now with this report. This restructuring means we have to take certain responsibilities off the tables of the federal government and put them into local government. So the people at the rural level can feel the impact of government and can, benefit from this, what we call dividends of democracy. If you look at the indices, you see health, food security, you see
living standard.
Yes, living standard and all of that. So it is important that our primary health care system must work. And I think federal government is trying to address that with the new National Health Insurance Authority that has just been signed into law by the president. So therefore, the primary health care centers can drive the healthcare system of the country. So that's a good thing. But law is different from practice. Law is another thing. Using it to benefit the people is another thing. And with our experience in this country, we really do not know how to solve problems. If you look at some of these things, people like our musicians in the past, Fela Anikulapo, for instance, sang about this. No housing, no health, no education for close to 50 years. So what have we been doing? Successive governments has just been sleeping. Concentrate governance in the capital and just go to sleep. What happens to the rural areas? What happens to the people who live there? Education. During the last COVID, when the nation was on lockdown, yes, some schools in the capitals, in the cities, they were doing online teaching and learning. The people of the rural areas were neglected.
They were completely non-existent.
Nobody remember them, that there are people here. So what we are saying is that we need to focus our policy to meet the needs of the people. Those in government must realize that majority of our people live in the rural areas, and we have to take governance to them anyhow possible.
And I think sometimes people tend to forget that. Even our leaders tend to forget that the majority of Nigerians actually live in the rural areas.
I think so.
You look at it. I mean, the report clearly says that 72% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor, and this 72% live in rural areas.
Yes.
And then something I'll also want you to speak to.
All right.
The report clearly shows that in that poverty, trapped in that poverty problem now, if you like, the majority of those who are trapped, they are children. So it says, for instance, that the majority of those who are poor in this country are children, and that 67% of these children, 0 to 17 years, they are multidimensionally poor, and that 51% of all, 90% I should say, 90% of these children are children who live in rural areas.
True. This indicates that we only concentrate governance in the city centers and call the media to report them. Nobody talks about those who live in the rural areas.
And do you think the media is also doing enough in terms of
the media is not doing it? Absolutely. They are not newsmakers. They are not newsmakers, so nobody pays attention to them. What do you think if you have our news coverage and reportage is such that politics takes majority of what we report in this country, and those in government and their cronies, what they do also attract media attention. But the suffering of the people in the rural areas hardly attract attention. If you look at it, all our media are concentrated in the city centers. All media, TV, newspaper, radio, concentrated in the city centers. So the journalists, reporters, who themselves may have come from the rural areas, once they begin to work in these media houses, they forget where they are coming from. They hardly go home. Politicians stay in the city centers, in the capitals. They hardly go home. You only see them during campaign for election. You see their posters. Where you don't see governance, if you go there, you will see politicians' poster campaigning for votes. But after winning the election, and even losing, you expect that those who have lost the election will even continue campaigning, going back to those places to tell them, please, we'll make your life better and all that. The moment they lose election, they also forget the rural areas. They go to the city center to continue their patronage. So everybody is guilty. The politicians, those in government, the media that should bring the problem of these people to the fore, to global attention. They are not doing anything. All our news content, they are what happened in the rural area and the city centers, in Abuja, in Lagos, in Oyo, in some states. It's important that we highlight it. Some states don't even get mentioned at all, even with their capital. Some states don't attract media attention. Not the talk. So if the capital and the governor and the commissioners and co, if they don't attract media attention, how do you expect the people in the rural areas who live on nothing, next to nothing, how do you expect them to attract media attention? So it's a multidimensional problem that requires multidimensional approach to solving. One of them is that we must take governance from the center. Federal government is taking more than it can actually handle. Give it back to the people at the rural through their local government representative. Although we should not be naive enough to say once you give more powers to the local government chairman, it means governance will automatically go down to the people. No, it doesn't mean it will happen, because experience has shown that even our local government chairmen, the moment they are voted into office, majority of them will go back to Abuja. Some will be in Lagos. They will be local government chairman running running the affairs of their local government from the city centers. They only go when they want to share money.
Okay, let me even ask, let me go back to Shehu. Shehu, I know this is also a problem in the north because I've stayed in the north, and it's something I've seen a lot where you have local government chairmen who are local government chairmen of some rural local government areas, but they hardly stay there. They basically live in their state capitals, and they hardly come. They probably would come back just once a month to share money. That's just to pay salaries, and then they leave. How much is this a problem in the north? And why do you think it's important for this orientation to change? Because obviously, if something is not done to address rural poverty, it will definitely affect all of us.
Yeah, thank you again on that. Actually, in one instance, you cannot blame the local government chairman because of 3 reasons I'm going to mention. One of the reasons is they are not empowered. Secondly, we have been struggling to now ensure there is local government autonomy, which it doesn't happen. Mostly in the north here, just like in other part of the country, the governors dictate what happened in the local government. And usually, as you know, they are appointed, there is no election. Like for Borno State, I think it's after about 14 years, it's only now last year that we have an election for local government chairman. And now, those local government chairmen, they are usually appointed. And once you are appointed, you are not elected. I think the power you have is so less. And that gives you, makes you very vulnerable. And then the communities are also not helping matters. They see the local government chairman as ATM, where they come when their wife give birth and when their daughters are getting married, is the responsibility of the local government chairman. And where will he get the money, since the money given to him is usually calculated by the governors? So what I'm trying to say here is the problem are multidimensional. It is constitutional, one, because we need the local government autonomy. Secondly, it is also involved societal reorientation, where the communities need to understand that the role of the local government chairman is not to dish handout, but to provide governance to the people. And thirdly, the system did not give them the fund to do this work. So what do? They have to come back to the city to hide in hotels, or else how could you sustain that in every week you go to your office and you have people waiting to give you, that you give them money? This is really an issue. A way out of it, if we want to get it right here, one, we need to take our responsibility seriously. And whether it has to start with our governance system, of which I know is difficult and it's a dream. Maybe in the near future, we're going to get this local government autonomy that we are all been fighting for. You know how it happened, how many governors voted, and how the president really got a setback in ensuring that this thing come to pass. Until and unless we get the local government autonomy, the governors will continue anointing the local government chairman, and they will continuously be controlling the resources, and the resources will not be allowed to go down to the grassroots where the services will be provided to the people. And another aspect is the people also, they can be able to start asking for this good governance. How are we going to do that? The election is now around the corner. If the people want, they can start this process by holding the governors accountable. In all the state government, since we know that the only problem for this local government autonomy to be passed is some of the governors. And we know the data we have from the civil society, we know the governors that have passed, we know the governor that has kicked against the local government autonomy. We can be able to hold them accountable. Let's sign a charter of demand with all the governors that once you are elected, you're going to sign this local government, you're going to support the process. If you do not support the process, we're going to kick you out. And this is the process we need to start. It's high time, I think, we Nigerians stop lamenting and start taking our action. There are a lot of countries that have come out of this, because where does the governors come from? It's from us.
Yes.
There are people like us that we live together, we die together, and they get the responsibility to be the governors. And that doesn't make them God. And we need to start talking to them so that they should understand that they have a stake on it. And from the notice here, for us to get it right, we need to change how we do the things. We need to empower the grassroots as observed by the last speaker. Empowering them, we should stop this political poverty elevation about the stomach infrastructures, giving money in a television where you see a heap of money being distributed to people. No, we need a sustained means of livelihood. You have aggrieved. You have women that are widows that they lost their means of livelihood. You have voluntary security sectors that are protecting the community. Let's come up with a sustainable means where we can ensure that we address the needs of the community, not giving them this handout and then ensuring that we appoint chairman, that we control, we ask them to sign what we want to sign. So I think, as I said earlier, whoever is coming to lead this country have an Herculean task, and that task is holding them accountable and changing the way things are done. Or else, I think this complication we had during the present administration will really be a child play. Because look at inflation. What you bought today in the market, when you go back tomorrow, it's almost the price is doubling. And you have some teachers, some workers who are paid less than 18,000 naira in a month. That 18,000 cannot even fuel their car. What happened to the other needs in the community? So I think from the Northeast here, security-wise, we have really suffered. We know the value of peace. We know the effect of insecurity. And we are very careful. And we used to tell people that we need to toy the line carefully, or else it's not going to be good for us. Best index.
Let me come to you, Richard. One data I want you to, one of the findings, so to speak, I'd want you to comment on is that the one that says Bayelsa, Sokoto, Gombe, and Kebbi have over 95% of child poverty. Bayelsa State is an oil-producing state. You look at how much that state makes on a monthly basis. It's really huge. Are you surprised that Bayelsa State is mentioned alongside states like Sokoto, Gombe, and Kebbi?
I'm not only surprised, I'm shocked. What do people, our politicians, those in government, we need to ask them this question. What do they do with the money they get from Abuja, from different sources? It is not only the monthly allocation from the federal government, they also get, I think, 50% derivation. Yes. And you have oil companies doing different kinds of programs in those places. Now, Bayelsa has no business whatsoever being in the same bracket with all these Gombe, Sokoto, and Co. Because you are getting money. What are you doing with this money? Who is asking the governor, Mr. Governor, what are you doing? Alleviate people's poverty and improve people's life. In these places, Bayelsa is just 8 local government, for Christ's sake. And it's getting much more money than states with 30, 40 local governments. Then what is Bayelsa doing? And if you consider the fact that a large chunk of the state is covered by water, so you don't have the problem of you are tying road from one place to the other. So just these communities, improve their lifestyle, look at their schools, fix them, water, provide, empower people, financial empowerment. Don't let us forget that this multidimensional poverty index is different from monetary poverty. It is different. Monetary poverty, about 40% of Nigerians with no money. Then this multidimensional. Now, what is Bayelsa doing with money? That is what our elites, particularly those from Bayelsa, show us the governor. The money you get, what do you do with it?
And if you ask me, I would say, look, if you're comparing multidimensional poverty to monetary poverty, I think this is worse.
It is, of course, they are correlated. There is correlation, strong correlation between
because look at
poverty,
the dimensions: health, education, living standard, work and shocks, and much more.
If you don't have money, chances are that the school, you have private schools. If you have money, you take your children to private schools. If you don't have money, even when the schools have no roof, You just don't have a choice.
All right.
So
go on. Just wrap up.
So what I'm saying is that our elites, particularly those who are not politicians, they hold Nigerians that responsibility. Challenge the people, your friends in government, because elites, it's an elite conspiracy. The people in government, they are also friends to elites who are not in government. So these people work together. People should help. They should help. And the fact that the people in the rural area, they lack power. They don't have power to challenge those in authority beyond their vote. So our elite should help those in need. Help them to challenge those in government, so they can live up to their responsibility.
So what would be your final word now on this poverty index released by the NBS?
Well, for me, a quick recommendation is, as I mentioned, we need to go back to the drawing board, and we need to have an effective service delivery, good governance, accountability, and then transparency in how we do our things. And for us to get this right is for us to provide the necessary infrastructures for people to actualize their potential. We have full of youth here, especially from the Northeast. 70% of the people are farmers, and almost 65% of the population are youth with a lot of energy. And these youth, they need a platform to actualize their potential. It amazes me when any time our youth go out of our environment, they excel. So the question here is, what is wrong? It means something is wrong with our with the way we do our things. So I think I would recommend to, especially to the government, they should create an enabling environment. Like here, 70% of the people are already affected by the insurgency. What do? You create an enabling environment, like the SMEs, small and medium enterprises, give them some soft loan to start their businesses, give them some tax levies, create a market for them, connect them with the international community on how they can be able to have an exchange of trade and services. Then our educational system also need to play a role. Education is my background. Our school system need to also, we need to go back to the remote to teach our people how they can be able to contribute to the economy. Because what we have here is about how to draw a cockroach, how to draw a grasshopper, which at the end of the day, it doesn't have any value to our economy. So for us to get it right, for the citizens, I will urge them to, as we go out to vote, let's vote credible leaders. Let's sign a charter of demand with them, and let's hold them accountable. Because it's only when we get all these things right that we can able to have the leads that they can be able to give all the services. Anyway you look at it, it is the leadership.
Yeah. So I think we'll just have to end the discussion there. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Richard Adeyinka, thank you very much for your time. And Ahmed Shehu from Maiduguri, thank you also for joining us on the show.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so very much. All right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion now from an economic perspective. We'll hear from an economist. Don't go away. Stay with us.
Opinions are free. Facts are sacred. The truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
All right, welcome back. Let's look at the economic side of these numbers, and now being joined on the program by Dr. Moda Yusuf, who is the CEO, Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. Thank you very much, Doc, for talking to us. You look at the numbers. What do you make of them?
Well, the numbers did not come as a surprise. First, in terms of the reality of poverty in Nigeria, we all know what it is. So the numbers that we are seeing are just a kind of validation of the reality that is on the ground. And even before then, we have had the projection by the World Bank, which estimates that poverty incidence in Nigeria is about 42.6%.
Yes.
That's for 2022. We estimate that that is coming to around 95 million people in abject poverty. So, I mean, that is using a monetary benchmark.
Benchmark, yes.
But now we are using multidimensional, so it's understandable that the number is much bigger. But it didn't come as a surprise at all.
And of course, not surprising, as you've said, but what exactly do they tell us?
Well, it's telling us about the quality of life. Because if you look at the metrics that have been used in this analysis, it's similar with what we have with the Human Development Index. Nigeria's rating or ranking in Human Development Index globally is 163. That's how lowly we rank. On African continent, our ranking is 32. And what is even more striking within the context of the African continent ranking is the fact that we are the biggest economy on the continent. So in terms of the GDP, we are number 1. But in terms of Human Development Index, we are number 32 in Africa. So that shows the huge disconnect between our economy and the welfare of the people. So, and that speaks to what we call real issues of development. Because the economy is about human beings, it's about welfare at the end of the day. So in all the key developmental parameters, we have not been doing well at all.
But how important is this survey now? How important is it in terms of fashioning out government policies? Because the government is involved in this. The government actually was directly involved in this survey. So how important is this in terms of government policies to tackle the problem of poverty in this country? Not just at the federal level, but even also at the state and even local government level?
Yeah, it is important. And I must commend the fact that the government this time did not live in denial. You know, the government were represented at a very high level at the presentation of these reports. Because ordinarily they will have dismissed it and condemn it and look for reasons to discredit the report. But that did not happen in this instance. So I must commend the government, at least for that humility in admission that the situation is quite bad. In terms of its importance, it has a lot of significance for policy especially. Because how did we get here? You know, when we look at how we got here, we can now know how we can retrace our steps back. First, there is the economic factor in this, which is partly what I alluded to at the beginning. It is one thing to have economic growth, it's another thing to have economic development. Economic development variables captures all the key variables that have been identified in this report. And all these developmental variables, we are not doing well at all, whether you are talking of health, poverty, hunger, education, maternal mortality, and the rest of them. So we need to connect the growth to development. And the way to do that is to ensure that we have what we call economic inclusion. We have an economy that carries everybody along. So that is very key.
But you look at...
And of course,
okay.
we need
Go
to,
on.
We also need to look at the structure of spending, because the way we appropriate government resources also matters a great deal. If you look at the structure of spending at the federal, at the state, and at the local government level, they are not sufficiently addressing these developmental issues, you know, that can help, you know, to address the issues of poverty, inequality, and all of that. Then the issues of productivity is very important, because what most citizens also need is the environment for them to be productive. So we need to address productivity issues, look at structural issues, look at all these other issues, so that especially the SMEs and micro enterprises and those in the formal sector can get on with their lives. They can do a lot more. They can be more productive. So from the economic point of view, these are some of the variables. Then more importantly is the macroeconomic factors, because the macroeconomic environment also has a way of accelerating poverty, particularly inflation. When people are poor, one of the biggest reasons they are poor is the fact that their purchasing power has been significantly eroded. And there is no time it has been so bad as in the last 1 to 2 years. So we need to address issues of inflation. We need to address issues of interest rate, exchange rates. All these factors affect productivity. They affect performance of small businesses and of investors. Because it is investors that create the employment. If the investors are not doing well by virtue of the macroeconomic environment, there's no way we can create jobs. And without jobs, we continue to have poverty. So from the economic point of view, from the macroeconomic point of view, we need to create the environment to allow businesses, SMEs, micro enterprises to be able to create jobs, to be able to prosper, to be able to employ more people.
There's something
that
else
is very critical in terms of policy.
Yes, Doc. There's something else I want you to speak to. When you look at the numbers, you look at the disproportion now between the poverty rate in urban areas and the poverty rate in rural areas. You look at it, multidimensional poverty is highest in rural areas, 72%, but it's just around 42% in urban areas. So what exactly does that tell us?
What it tells us is that there's more prosperity in the urban centers than the rural areas.
So which means government policies will need to be concentrated on rural areas.
Exactly. That is also part of the policy of inclusion. When you are talking of an economy that is inclusive, you also look at it from the spatial perspective, so that we don't see development concentrated just in the urban centers. We need to have a dispersal of opportunities, so that we don't see people now migrating from the rural areas to the urban centers because they feel that there are no opportunities in the rural areas. There is so much poverty in the rural areas. And that also speaks to the need to develop the rural area, particularly with respect to infrastructure, with respect to connectivity, connecting the rural centers to the urban centers, so that the key activity, economic activities in the rural areas can thrive, particularly agriculture and agro-allied industries. So it's very critical for economic inclusion.
And something else, you look at the figures, the rate of child poverty in this country is really high. As a matter of fact, the bulk of those who are poor in this country are children and, of course, women. I mean, going by the statistics now. And then you look at the rate of child poverty in rural areas. It's terribly, terribly high, about 90% or so.
Yes, that is very disturbing. And for that, we also have social factors. For this, we have cultural factors. We have religious factors. Maybe some ethnic factors as well. Because if you look at the poverty mapping, just as this report has shown, you have over 80% of those poor in the northern part of the country.
Exactly.
So when you are talking about education, and particularly education of the girl child, it's worse up north. So there's a correlation between the culture, the religion, and education. So if you have all that going together, it manifests in the kind of statistics that we see. Because there's no sufficient investment in education, and that has been made worse by the fact that education of the girl child is also not good enough. And generally, even across all over the world, I think we are one of the worst in terms of the children that are not in school. So these are very important indicators of the fact that we need to do a lot more in terms of investment in education.
And this, of course, clearly shows that
local government administration, no matter whether we like it or not, they play a very important role. And it's so unfortunate that in this country, local government administration or local governments have basically been emasculated. So when you have government at the basic level not pulling their weight, this is probably part of what you get.
I agree with you. I mean, you're on point on that, because what we have today is almost a total collapse of governance in the local government areas. There is no accountability. The level of corruption is high. Nobody is checking anything. Then, in a way, sometimes even the states kind of subdue even the local governments. So we need to strengthen governance at that level. It's very, very important. The quality of governance at the local government level is extremely low. Transparency issues, corruption, poor accountability is worse at the local government level. And we need to do a lot more in that area in order to address this very important issue.
Dr. Muda Yusuf, thank you very much for your time and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you so very much. All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal. How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
The president must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues. Welcome back. Now let's talk about climate issues. African nations came into this month's COP27 International Climate Summit in Egypt with high hopes. They may yet leave empty-handed. With the event taking place on the continent for the first time since 2016, it was dubbed the Implementation COP. But as the event comes to a close, little progress has been made in mapping out how rich nations will honor a promise to provide $100 billion in annual climate finance for developing nations. Neither has much ground been made on honoring a pledge to double funding for adapting to changing weather by 2025. Now, a proposal that Africa's special needs and circumstances be considered also didn't make it onto the agenda. There's also been consistent demands from Africa and other developing regions that a separate fund be created, but that demand has been resisted by the industrialized world, who would rather existing facilities be used. A decision, of course, that has left African delegates frustrated. And I want to talk to one of the African delegates right now. Sulaiman Arigbabu actually is still in Egypt and was there throughout the discussion on everything about the climate discussions now. He joins us from Egypt, I guess from that city of Sharm el-Sheikh. Sulaiman, thank you very much for joining us on the program. The conference is, well, essentially come to a close. So what did Africa gain from this?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me once again. Well, the conference has not come to a close. It's an extended negotiation. So as we speak, the conference is still going on at the COP Center. So the negotiations is still on because if the conference were to come a definition for failure, especially from the African and developing countries' perspective, because critical issues of climate financing, especially on adaptation, critical issues of special needs and circumstances recognition for Africa, the very important issues of developing, at least agreeing on a funding mechanism for loss and damage were issues that were not decided on, and were going to be passed to COP28. So right now, the negotiation is still on as we speak. The African group of negotiators and some other, and we have the G77 and China, which comprises of the African groups and some developing countries plus China, are still pushing strongly that at least some measure of decisions be taken here in Sharm el-Sheikh. And then we can say that there's been some movement beyond just talk. So right now, the atmosphere is not very nice. People are quite dissatisfied, but the negotiation continues. And
sticking point. What has been the sticking point?
The best of outcomes, but it is not over yet.
So what has been the sticking point, actually, especially on those issues that you mentioned? You know, for instance, loss and damage, the issue of climate finance, financing, issue of adaptation financing as well. What exactly are the sticking points?
So it is money. Money is always the sticking point. And then, of course, the other issue is fossil fuel. But let's look at money. In 2009, in Denmark, in Copenhagen, there was an agreement that, okay, there's need to create a green climate fund. And so the discussion was improved upon in Mexico the following year. And the agreement is that, okay, when you have this green climate fund, it will mobilize $100 billion up to 2020 annually to support developing countries to follow a different path to their development and to deal with their immediate climate realities, especially adaptation. As we speak, nothing of that money, less than 15 billion in all, over the length of over 10 years, have been mobilized. Pledges have been made, not much of the pledges have been fulfilled. So that's the problem. And Africa is now saying that we don't even need this $100 billion a year. Our needs goes beyond that. Africa is looking at over an amount close to 6 trillion to be able to deal with climate change, especially on the area of adaptation. And it's saying we need to move this money even to $150 billion a year. But even the $100 billion that was initially pledged has never come through. That is one. There are a lot of money that is pledged on bilateral levels. But we know the politics of some of these aids, especially from so-called development aid, which is what is being one of the principles when negotiating climate financing, especially in the context of developed countries paying their climate debt, is that this fund, there's a particular principle that this fund should be new and additional to development aid. So it's not that you change the money you are giving, you are helping to support on malaria and some other things. You now go and recapture it and call it some climate fund. So we have a lot of bilateral aid going on, bilateral pledges. Some are in terms of grants, some are in terms of commercial finances, but over time that. But the main issue is that you have climate debt. The whole convention, the UNFCCC convention, which is out of the World Summit, is that in 1992 in Rio, is that there are climate debts that are owed. If all of us were to go the dirty path to development, we'll crash the world. So there are some people that follow this path and they have made a lot of money, they have built their economy, and so they have historical debt, they have climate debts to pay. And they should help the rest of us not to follow that same path. So there are some principles that are being violated. Kyoto Protocol was meant to address some of that, but because the United States was not ready, Kyoto Protocol was eventually jettisoned. Then we went to Paris in 2015, at the COP21, where, okay, nations then agreed to all contribute to mitigation, because either mitigation has not really been the focus for Africa because we have not really contributed much to the greenhouse gases that is causing all of this emission, all of this global warming. And at that, when we all agree to nationally determined contributions to emission reduction, it is on the basis that you are going to support us meet these obligations. But the finances is not coming. The technology transfer is not coming. Africa is just being made to contribute more without being given what it will require in terms of it. So finance is at the heart of the issue. When it comes to the issue of loss and damage, what Africa and the group of 77 countries are saying is that, look, some countries, for some people, it is already late. For some communities, it is already late. So loss and damage, when you look at the kind of flooding that Pakistan and Nigeria experienced recently, for some communities, they will never be able to recover. So loss and damage, for this year, we are saying, let's have a funding mechanism, because through this funding mechanism, it will be different from the either funding mechanism for some of the funds like adaptation and GCF, where it became difficult for African countries to access this fund. But that a funding for loss and damage will be a fund that recognizes that the people who are demanding loss and damage, every minute counts for them, every second counts for them to prevent loss of lives and water, because they have already experienced disasters that is beyond them. So these are some of the fine issues. Then there is the issue on fossil fuel. I personally think that the issue of fossil fuel is something that is really tricky for everybody, both for the developing countries and for Africa, because we have new African fossil fuel countries who have discovered coal, who have discovered gas, and who are saying we are going to explore this to our benefit. And now the European countries are supporting that because they have also faced energy challenges due to the crisis in Russia and Ukraine. The civil society organizations are saying that means that we are going to further pollute the world. That means we are going to further heat up the world, and people are going to further suffer. And you are not providing the kind of support that they need, to go through some of the extreme climate circumstances that they are going to be facing. So these are some of the tough issues. But of course, you have countries like the United States who are saying, no, there's no issue of providing another funding mechanism for loss and damage, because they know that they are the biggest polluters, and they are going to have the biggest responsibility to provide some of the funds being required. So it's a matter of, I don't want to give money, I need you to give money because you owe a debt. So the negotiation hasn't really gone the way that Africa would have loved it to go.
All right, we'll wait and see what the outcome of the ongoing negotiation would be, but it's beginning to look like the negotiation will be carried forward to probably COP28, because that has been the pattern for quite some years now. We just wait and see what happens. But all the same, Sulaiman Arogabu, Executive Secretary of HEDA Resource Center, thank you very much for joining us on the program, and thank you for your time. Well, that's how much we can take on the program, actually. We'll see you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on News Now at this time. Thank you for joining us again on the newsroom. The State Emergency Management Authority has said there's going to be one vote woman and the rampant illegal spectrum frequencies. The banks took over the wheels on the Niger stock market today as sellers eased.
Many thanks for joining us on the newsroom. I am Abisola Adebayo. The Court of Appeal sitting in Yola has set aside the High Court rulings, nullifying the primaries that produced Emmanuel Bacha and Aisha Tubinani as the All Progressives Congress governorship candidates for Taraba and Adamawa states respectively. The court on Thursday ordered that their names should be forwarded to the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) as APC governorship candidates for both states. In September, Justice Simon Amobeda of the Federal High Court in Jalingo, the Taraba state capital, sacked Boacha after a petition by former aspirant David Kente. Similarly, in October, a Federal High Court sitting in Yola nullified the APC primary that produced Binani as the party's governorship candidate in Adamawa. The Lagos State government has announced traffic diversion for the upcoming All Progressives Congress presidential and gubernatorial rallies, scheduled to hold on Saturday, 26 November 2022 at the Teslim Balogun Stadium in Surulere, Lagos. Lagos State Commissioner for Transportation Frederick Oladeyinde, who made this known on Wednesday, through a statement released by the ministry, advised Lagosians to plan their movement around Teslim Balogun Stadium, Funshaw Williams Avenue, and Alaji Masha areas in Surulere. He warned that human and vehicular movement around the affected areas would be regulated, as there would be a series of traffic diversions for safety and security management purposes. The United Kingdom says it is closely watching political parties and individuals as it relates to inciting violence during the 2023 election in Nigeria. The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Katrina Lang, said this on Wednesday during a meeting with members of the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Abuja. She said the UK is not supporting any party or presidential candidates in the forthcoming election, adding that the sanction of visa denial is in place for anyone found culpable of electoral violence. Mainland China reported more than 31,000 COVID infections for Wednesday, including cases without symptoms. That surpassed the 29,307 April during the Shanghai lockdown. However, daily COVID infections with symptoms remain well below the high seen in April. Nearly 90% or more of total COVID cases reported in recent days have been asymptomatic. The southern city of Guangzhou, the national capital of Beijing, and the southwestern municipality of Chongqing have been the hardest hit in the latest COVID wave, but nearly all of China's 31 province-level regions have reported new COVID infections with and without symptoms each day. The Senate has asked the National Council on Privatization and the Bureau of Public Enterprise to suspend indefinitely the proposed concession of the 700-megawatt station in Niger State, pending the conclusion of an investigation by its Committee on Power. The upper chamber is requesting the deferment of the planned concession after lawmakers debated a motion sponsored by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Power, Gabriel Suswam, who explained that it will be unacceptable to concession the power plant without ensuring accountability and proper management of unsettled external loans tied to the project. Federal lawmakers, including Senate President Ahmed Lawan, supported his stance. They pointed out the abysmal failure of the privatization of the electricity sector. On the foreign scene, Malaysia's king appointed long-time opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim as Prime Minister on Thursday, and he will be sworn in at 5 p.m., ending 5 days of unprecedented post-election crisis after inconclusive polls. Anwar's appointment caps a 3-decade-long political journey from a protege of veteran leader Mahathir Mohamad to protest leader to a prisoner convicted of sodomy to opposition leader and finally Prime Minister. His supporters expressed hope that Anwar's government would head off a return to historic tension between the ethnic Malay Muslim majority and ethnic Chinese and Indian minorities. Former Manchester United forward Cristiano Ronaldo has been blamed for 2 domestic matches for knocking a phone out of an Everton fan's hand. The 37-year-old appeared to eat the phone as it went down to the tunnel after defeat at Goodison Park in April. Ronaldo will now serve the ban at domestic level with any new club in England or abroad, although this does not apply at continental club levels such as the Champions League. Ronaldo, who left United by mutual consent on Tuesday after criticizing manager Erik ten Hag, was also fined €50,000 by the Football Association. Well, that's all on the newsroom at this time. Many thanks for watching.
My name is Omotoyosi Olarewaju Ogunlende. I'm an artist. I studied art from the Yaba College of Technology, where I did my OND and my HND. And I graduated from the Department of Art. I majored in sculpture. My father used to love art though. He's late now. May his soul rest in peace. And my mom didn't give me any issues about me practicing art or not. So basically, I've got art inside me from while I was a child. I used to draw back then, and my mom used to sell some of my drawings for me in church. So I've had art in me basically. So I'm a born artist. Well, like I said, I started while I was a child. I started drawing from comics, you know. I pick up comics and I draw, and that's how I knew I think I've got some art, you know, art skills in me basically. So art has been inside of me basically. If you're asking for string art, basically I've been doing string art in a very short while now, say like 3-4 years now. Yeah, basically I've been doing string art. I ran into string art in I think 2016, yes, at an art conference where I went with a brother of mine. I saw this dude he was just stringing on the wall, like on a long stretch, no particular design. He was just from one nail to the other, from one nail to the other, from one nail to the other, like that continuously. And it formed this rays of different colors. And I was so, you know, it caught my attention, and I didn't even ask the guy what's his name. I didn't have any conversation with the guy. I just saw it. I took pictures that I lost some of them. I can't even find them any longer. So I just saw it, and I was wondering, I came back to Nigeria and I was wondering, okay, that art that I saw, what's it called? What is it called? And I just went on Google and I was like, is it thread art? Is it nail art? Is it string art? And voila! And I saw different forms of string art, you know, from normal, you know, simple artworks created and into portraiture, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And that's how I found myself into it. Following, you know, different artists who are into string art via social media, and it has been a wonderful followership and understudying some string artists in the diaspora. Now, what made me focus on string art? Basically, I saw it as a different form of art. A form of art that you can liken to painting on canvas, you can liken to sculpture, you can liken to watercolor and the likes of it. So that's what I focused it because it wasn't that known, if I should say that, in this part of the world in Nigeria. It wasn't that known in Nigeria, and it's still not known yet though. Well, achievement basically, Bella Africana had an award sometimes, I think 2017 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I was nominated, and I know there are more achievements to come basically, but personally it has paid off for me. And like I say, is my found love. That's what I call string art. So I do string art even to the smallest piece. If it's possible for me to string, I will string it. Challenges basically is not a widely accepted, form of art in this part of the world, because trying to push it out there, trying to market it, trying to get people, known and all that. It has been challenging in such a way that questions like how durable is it? Does it last long, and what have you? I would say that has been the challenge, and also back to how you charge and all that. So basically that has been the challenge. So far so good basically. For me, the materials are readily available because you have here the armor, threads, and nails. They are all readily available, and the woods that I use, the boards that I use, they're readily available. So they are not too much of materials that are challenging for me to find around. So materials are readily available. It's just what you interpret with the medium, which is the nails and thread. Yes, what you interpret with it perhaps might be, a bit two females and two male. So I was able to display my works there, and I also leverage on social media, which is my Instagram handle. I also push it on social media, Facebook, which that's for many artists right now. That's our own gallery, So that's basically how I push it out there. People get to know it. I've got so many commissions via Instagram, and I give them the glory. For me, my greatest achievement so far, because I haven't gotten to it yet, so far my greatest achievement has been impacting my knowledge, impacting my knowledge of the string art, steps, methods, and what have you, of string art into children and even adults too. So basically that's been my achievement so far. future plan basically for me is to be known worldwide as Nigerians' famous string artists, basically. For me, that's my future plan, and hoping to have a series of exhibitions locally and internationally. Say nothing brings money, but how diligent, how good, persistent, and creative you are with that thing you do, it will bring the money. Basically, that's it for me. Because likewise, you too, if you're not good at what you do, you won't be here. If you're not creative at what you do, you won't be here. So for me too, yeah, people who say there is no money in art. Now, would we say there is money in banking? Because I sit at the counter and I receive money, it's not my money. Do you understand? So for me, what you do with your hands, diligently, wisely, persistently, will definitely bring that money you want your way and the fame. Indirectly, I won't use the word train, say inspire. Do you understand? Yes. I've been able, I can't say how many people, because not everybody will come out and say, you inspired me, you know. A lady sometimes back on Instagram, she's a cake maker, you know, she just posted it and said my string art inspired her to produce this kind of cake, you know, and I was, wow, oh, amazing. There's a lady too in Brazil that has been chatting me up, you know, she's also a string artist and trying to ask me questions, how she can go about this, how she can go about that. So for me, it goes a long way. So you never can tell how many people you've been able to inspire or touch their lives. So that's why I coined it down to indirectly. I know I've inspired different kinds of people, either in the art sector or in whatever sector you can call it, but somehow, because other people too in other field have also inspired me, you know, to also keep up my craft. So basically for me, I know I've inspired different people in different areas. There's nothing new, they say, under the heavens, you know. But for me, the material I use, which is the nail and thread, for me makes it unique because it's not a widely found medium of art in this part of the world. So basically, for me, the materials I use and how, well, that's what I've been told. How neat, you know, and firm, you know, my threads are usually on the nails. Basically, for me, makes it stand out. So far, so good. My work has been to the United States, which a private collector bought off me in Nigeria here and took it over there. So basically for me, that's why I said it's work in progress. You get it. So for now, so far, so good. Yeah, we're working on going globally. For me, I would say it's an achievement being one of the recognized, or the foremost, or the one who pushed string arts out there in Nigeria, which we're still working on, we're still keeping at it. For me, I would say it's not adding to my bank account though, but it's a plus though. Yeah, whether I like it or not, it's a plus. People who know me to be, the string artist and all that, which I gave myself that name, the string one, but it's not yet, so to say, a name that will be, on the lips of everybody. But I know very soon, someday, one day, it will definitely be. I can't say I've arrived, really, because work never ends. Even the topmost recognized artists, the Yusuf Grillo and the likes of them, Baba Oshinowa and Co, they are still working. So for me, I haven't arrived yet. Really, sky is just the starting point for me. I haven't gotten to that point where I will sit back and say I've arrived. Nah, I'm not God, though I'm a mini God, but then I haven't gotten to that point or peak yet. Any hardworking, diligent, and focused person inspires me. And if I should pick from the world of, but there are lots of artists back home here that inspires me. I won't lie to you. Yes, I do get injured. I even have a scar on my thumb right now, and oftentimes yes, I get injured and you just stomach it and you forge your head. Basically, when you get injured, that shouldn't be a stop to say I'm not doing this. But I kid you not, it's not an easy medium. It's not, basically.
for joining us on News Now at this time.
Thank you for joining us again on the newsroom. Niger State Emergency Management Authority was serving for those media school, land woman, and the rampant illegal spectrum frequencies.
The bombs took over the news on the Niger East.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Folashade Ogurinde. For the 9th straight month, Nigeria's inflation rate has seen a steady rise. In the month of October, the Consumer Price Index, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, accelerated to 21.09%, marking a 0.32 percentage points increase from 20.77% recorded in September. This is coming as food inflation in October 2022 also increased to 23.72% from 18.34% in the corresponding month last year. According to the possible factors responsible for the increase include disruption in the supply of food products, increase in the cost of importation due to the persistent currency depreciation, and the general increase in the cost of production. For more insight into this development, I'm joined now by Gospel Obele, the CEO and Chief Economist at Streetnomics Limited. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, what do you make of the latest inflation rate of 21.09%?
Yes, thank you so much for having me once again. Yes, so I'm not surprised that inflation has risen in Nigeria. It's largely expected due to the series of events, both internally in terms of policies that has been rolled out, also within the context of where the country is right now, the political tensions in view and all that. Then looking more externally, you're talking about the geopolitics of things, the Russian-Ukraine war, as well as post-COVID-19 supply chain recovery dynamics as well. And the climate change economics or the climate change narrative. The gist is that all of these different buckets of events, internally and externally, have shaped where we are as an economy, such that we are crippled more vulnerably and we are open or susceptible to rising costs of living or inflationary impact, as it were. More recently as well, in the Nigerian economy, we're seeing that the flood has hit, and what this flood simply means is a possible rise in inventory stock by suppliers of food or those who are responsible for farm to market. And taking also into consideration that the Christmas period is around the corner, plus the fact that Q1 is going to be heavy on elections, it's really, really a call for worry what the future is in terms of the cost of living crisis, or if at all that inflationary impact burden heavily on food or energy on the average Nigerian will fizzle out soon.
Now, how do you think the CBN will react to this rise in inflation, especially as regards interest rates?
Well, I would expect that the CBN would still largely remain conventional in its approach. And that's because just for some reasons, central banks are being conventional across board globally, raising interest rates and all that, which is necessarily not bad. It's a necessary condition to sort of try to reduce the inflationary numbers or the inflationary impact on the economy. But the nature of inflation we are dealing with is a bit non-monetary and largely unconventional as well. So meaning that it's going to require more than just interest rates, to help us really beat down or solve this inflationary menace that we face. Let's not forget that the rise in inflation is also leading some form of cost of living crisis owing to the pressure points, food, energy, and these pressures are redefining cost of living, in terms of increased cost of living and all that. So the central bank is likely going to do more increase in the interest rates, as in terms of following the bandwagon. And what we've seen is that central banks are leaning towards protecting financial markets more than the real economy. It's looking as though there is a trade-off between the financial markets and real economy. The real economy is now much more open to a worsening cost of borrowing conversation to permeate into cost of doing business and cost of product, services, and the like. So I do not think that interest rates as a standalone are sufficient, in as much as, yes, they could be necessary as a good approach, but they are not sufficient within the context of the inflationary construct we're dealing with now in the times we live in.
Now, it appears rising inflation is not just a Nigerian thing, as global economies such as the UK are experiencing the same.
Yes, I agree. It's not a rising. Yes, I agree. It's not a Nigerian conversation. It's a global conversation. And to a very large extent, I think that the world has been a bit laid back, or institutional leaders have been a bit laid back in terms of watching interest rates rise. I also think that the era of interpreting the inflation we deal with, what I meant to say was that since the pandemic, we realized that factors outside non-economic, largely have a huge potential of shaping economic variables. And I think that's one major lesson of the post-pandemic or the pandemic period that a lot of institutional leaders never learned, even up until now. So meaning that the construct of the inflation we're dealing with right now is global. And it's global because you have a strong geopolitics conversation between Russia and Ukraine, on that table. You have evolving climate change crisis, which is a very serious problem. Vietnam is facing a lot around soya bean. The geopolitical crises are impacting on grain production and a lot of sunflower oil and a lot of raw materials, and all that. All of these dynamics have impacted heavily on global supply chain and access to market. And that's impacting heavily on, food and energy prices and the like. So yes, it's a global challenge. But I believe that central banks, in partnership, more importantly, with fiscal authorities, need to begin to think of more conventional but clusterized approach, to dealing on a sufficient bit, to solving inflation as a problem that has risen within the times we are in. The era of allowing central banks just raise the interest rates without any collaborative approach on the fiscal side, especially being intertwined with what the central or monetary institution is doing, the era of just working separately would not yield any result. In fact, it's going to worsen the situation more, because with your actions or inactions also perceived or actual uncertainties on the economy, and investors, the real sector and different players always act accordingly. So there is need for that collaboration across board, across nations of the earth, across institutional leaders in different contexts, and a lot more maturity in a lot more maturity and rising up to address the major issues that are threatening global prosperity and growth, inclusive growth in the times we live in.
Definitely, it's impossible to talk about food inflation without touching on flooding. How significant will this year's flooding be on food prices in the coming months?
It's going to worsen, and that's not a good news, really. It's going to worsen. It's going to worsen because we are also not paying attention to what's happening, or we don't really understand or haven't properly interpreted what's happening. Food inflation is a major part of, this whole conversation, and that has been the most consistent penetration point of increased cost of living for the average, Nigerian, even globally, across board. And what that is also bringing to us is it's redefining, the state of prosperity, is redefining what we term as newer levels of poverty traps. Even if people earn more money or they have more cash, that disposable income or the disposable spend is being shrinked because the cost of living or the cost of getting the basic necessities are being hijacked every day. And with the flood crisis in Nigeria, what that simply means is that the supply chains have been further broken or arrested. And because we've not had that visionary leadership to begin to lead efficient food security systems, good storage systems and all that, there's a huge gap that is available. And because nature abhors vacuum, that would be reflected in increased prices of goods and services, the market as at now, plus the fact that inventory stock will also increase and will also lead to further increases in the future, as there will be concerns around harvesting crops and all of that when the time is due, next year and all that. So the ripple effects of the flood or climate change economics in this conversation cannot be estimated as at now, because one is still a developing story, but we know for sure that the price of food is going to go high. And the price of food goes high, a lot of people in Nigerians are going to be poorer, especially Africans, are going to be poorer for it, because they may not be able to afford the basic 3 square meals at the nutritional levels they need for their growth and human productivity.
Well, indeed, Gospel Obele, the CEO and Chief Economist at Streetnomics Limited, thank you very much for your time and your contribution on the program.
Thank you for having me, Folashade.
Well, we'll take a break here, but Money Matters returns shortly. To stay with us. Welcome back to the program. On its launch in late October 2021, Nigeria became the first country in Africa to enable the use of a legal tender digital currency for daily financial transactions. Despite having a year to promote and encourage the adoption of a Bloomberg report found that less than 0.5% of Nigerians are using the digital currency. This means that less than 1 in 200 people in Nigeria are active users of the e-Naira. During a ceremony held by Nigeria Central Bank to celebrate 1 year of the e-Naira, its governor, Godwin Emefiele, explained that e-Naira has recorded around 700,000 transactions worth over 8 billion naira. Now, despite statistics, reports show that around 1 million Nigerians had downloaded the e-Naira digital wallet. This suggests that over 300,000 wallets have been opened but are not in use. Now, to speak more on this, Sam Chidoka, the Managing Director and CEO, Kairos Capital Limited, joins me now. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the e-Naira has marked its first anniversary. How would you rate Africa's first digital currency 1 year?
Okay, thanks for having me. I think that in terms of the e-Naira, digital coins and digital system of payment is the way to go. The cashless economy is the way to go, is the way of the future, is the way of today and tomorrow. Cash itself, in terms of when we spend our money in cash, it's difficult to maintain. If CBN spends a lot of money producing cash, so the digital way to go. However, with the e-Naira, we haven't seen the type of surge in transactions that we expected to see. The report we saw shows that about 8 billion naira worth of transactions have been done in the e-Naira. But if you compare that with the reports we have from NIBS, NIBS records that between January and August 2022, there was a transaction value of over 200 trillion naira e-platforms. So whether it's by bank transfer or NIP transfer or mobile transfers, over 200 trillion naira worth of transactions has been done just in about 7 to 8 months. So that shows you that the e-Naira, when compared to other forms of banking transaction, is lagging behind. However, it's a step in the right direction, and if we combine what the e-Naira is doing and other digital forms to enhance the possibility of a digital economy and a cashless economy, which is, I believe, is the way to go.
It appears that there is a lag in acceptance and usage of e-Naira in Nigeria. What factors do you think are responsible for this?
So again, I think that we have sort of overgrown the e-Naira as a country. It's just like if you remember, some people tried to initiate mobile money in Nigeria, and it hasn't gotten the traction that mobile money got in a place like Kenya when you have the M-Pesa, right? Because in Nigeria, most banks have a banking app. And just on your phone, you can do transactions. So why do you want to switch it for another means of transaction, right? Because most people can very conveniently make transfers, receive monies, pay for products and services using their banking app that is on their phone, right? Or on the mobile app, on their tablets or on their laptop. it's difficult to begin to unlearn that and try another system. So e-Naira is competing with other forms of digital payments, right? And it's difficult to change when people have gotten used to a system of payment.
You recall that part of the motive for the e-Naira was to serve as an alternative to other digital currencies such as cryptocurrency, which the CBN is of course not in support of.
If that was the motive, if that was the drive to create an alternative to cryptocurrency, then we can say that it hasn't achieved that, because if you look at the volumes still being traded in those coins and cryptos, it hasn't quite abated in any form or shape. Even when people have taken some losses, because in recent past some of those currencies have taken a beating, right? But yet people are trading in those currencies. So in terms of that, the e-Naira hasn't quite. I do not think that the e-Naira will be able to replace those other digital currencies in terms of cryptos, because remember that the cryptocurrencies are way beyond Nigeria. In terms of volumes being traded, those volumes are much higher. In terms of peer-to-peer transactions, in terms of counterparties, you're trading with counterparties across the world. But the e-Naira is basically, at the moment, limited to our geographical construct at the moment. It's supposed to be a currency, a form of digital form that should traverse the geography of Nigeria, but it hasn't quite achieved that. So I do not think that it will overshadow digital currencies in terms of cryptos in any time soon.
Projecting into the future now, do you see the e-Naira gaining traction among Nigerians?
Well, I can't see it, to be honest. I think that, like anything, it will grow on some people. Some people will use it more than others will. The volumes will inch up a bit. But when you're going to compare that 8 billion naira to trillions of naira in terms of 200 trillion naira being done in 8 months using other digital forms, it's going to be quite a challenge. So those who use it will continue to use it. Some people will still experiment with it and just want to know what it is about. On a whole, I think that if you look at the whole digital currency space, whether it is e-Naira, whether it is transfer using USSD, whether it is banking using a banking app or your mobile app and all of that, or under your mobile platform, those things will continue to grow. As those continue to grow, reliance on cash transactions should naturally reduce, especially when you add POS transactions, and we're growing in number of merchants and all of that. So cumulatively, the digital space will grow. In that space, I think the e-Naira will still struggle a bit.
Well, Sam Chidoka, Managing Director and CEO Kairos Capital Limited, thank you very much for your time and your contribution. And it's a wrap on the program. See you again next time. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.
You can't travel on a wrong road for too long and expect to arrive at your destination. Nigerians road to nowhere. In 1999, after a windy period of military rule, Nigerians celebrated the advent of democratic governance, hoping that Obasanjo will bet the beginning of a new and prosperous Nigeria. Unfortunately, the long military rule, coupled with most military personnel who transmutated from military to civilian rule, created a military mentality that made Obasanjo turn himself into a headmaster who treated boys who could be whipped into line for disagreeing with the headmaster, using state apparatus like EFCC, while corruption went on unabated. At the end, Funds were wasted until date unaccounted for on a failed third-term bid. Umaru Musa Yar'Adua was subsequently promoted as president, and Nigerians celebrated the election of a graduate for the first time, even though he agreed that the election that brought him far from free or fair. But he didn't last, and you don't want to go into the political intrigues until Goodluck Jonathan was allowed to come on board. In 2011, Nigerians again celebrated the election of a PhD holder as a president who claimed he had no shoes. But in 2015, after the man obviously, have had some shoes, Nigerians wanted anybody but Jonathan. Away with his PhD. Even if he's a toy, don't mind, they say. This ineptitude and incompetence